Oh my God. They were everything to me. All of them.
Obviously, the one question is, everybody's asked me, why? I understand why Casey, why the boys, why your daughters.
In the month of August 2019, Casey Jones and her children went missing from Marion County in Florida. Some of her family members kept receiving text messages from her, but soon they became suspicious and contacted the authorities. What the investigators uncovered next left everyone reeling with shock and disbelief. What could have possibly happened to Casey and her children? Who was responsible for their disappearance? Marion County, located in the heart of Florida, is a hidden gem that offers a unique blend of natural beauty, rich history, and modern amenities. With a population of over 370,000 people, this vibrant community is known for its welcoming spirit and thriving economy. Visitors to Marion County can explore the stunning Ocala National Forest, stroll through historic downtown Ocala, or enjoy a day at one of the many nearby theme parks. The county also boasts a wide range of dining options, shopping destinations, and cultural attractions, making it the perfect destination for a weekend getaway or a long-term stay. And it's here that our story begins. Michael Jones and Casey Jones tied the knot on Halloween Day in 2017. In the same year, before their wedding, they had been blessed with a beautiful baby girl whom they named Mercalli. But their story didn't start there. Before they found each other, Michael and Casey had walked different paths. Michael had been married to a woman named Sarah Jones, and they had 3 children together. Casey, on the other hand, had been married to Richard Bowers, and together they had 2 boys named Cameron and Preston. But despite their past relationships, Michael and Casey fell in love and started their own family together. Fast forward to 2018, and the couple welcomed another little bundle of joy into their family, a baby girl named Ayana. The boys Cameron and Preston also lived together with Casey and their stepfather, Michael. All seemed well in their cozy home on Southeast 86th Terrace in Marion County, Florida, until strange things started happening. Sometime in July 2019, Richard Bowers received a text message from his ex-wife, Casey, asking if he could watch their 2 children, 10-year-old Cameron and 5-year-old Preston. Richard agreed, and they made plans to meet at the Leesburg Mall on July 27, 2019. During their text exchange, Casey informed Richard that her husband Michael would be dropping off the boys because she was in the hospital recovering from back surgery. This wasn't Casey's first time having back surgery, so Richard didn't think much of it at the time. On the scheduled day, Richard arrived at the mall, eager to see his boys. Michael soon arrived with the boys, who were in good spirits.
So then it's summer, so the boys, her boys end up going with their father for a couple weeks. So I have the girls, just me and the girls.
On August 1st, 2019, Nikki Jones, who was Casey's mother, received a message from her daughter. In the message, Casey asked if Nikki could watch her 2 young children, 2-year-old Mercalli and 1-year-old Ayana, for a few days. Nikki, who regularly watched the kids, happily agreed.
Where are the girls at this time? They were back with me at that point. I had dropped them off at my mother-in-law's.
Michael arrived with the 2 girls at Nikki's residence in DeLand, Florida. Everything seemed to be normal, and the girls were excited to spend time with their grandmother. As the days passed, Nikki received another text message from her daughter. This time, Casey said she was sick and asked if Nikki could keep the girls for a few more days. Nikki, being the doting grandmother she was, didn't hesitate to agree. As Nikki continued to look after Mercalli and Ayana, she couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off with her daughter, Casey. You see, the 2 spoke every day via text message, phone call, or video chat. Nikki simply found it strange that Casey had chosen to communicate with her only through text messages. Despite her worries, she held on to hope that everything was fine.
I think I had them back. And then
So you get the boys back from Dad, and school starts. School's going on for about a week.
Yeah.
What school do they go to?
I enrolled in Fruitland Park Elementary.
Okay.
Meanwhile, on August 10th, 2019, at approximately 1:30 p.m., Richard dropped off his two sons, Cameron and Preston, at a designated spot as agreed upon by him and Casey. Michael then picked them up. Little did Richard know this would be the last time he would see his boys alive. On August 14th, 2019, Michael arrived at his mother-in-law's house to pick up his daughters, Mercalli and Ayanna. In the days that followed, Nikki repeatedly tried to reach out to her daughter, Casey, through texts and calls. But all her efforts proved futile as the phone went straight to voicemail and she never received any response back. Richard was equally worried. On August 22, 2019, he tried to reach out to her to wish their son Preston a happy birthday, but all his attempts went unanswered. Friends and acquaintances also found it strange that Casey had not posted on social media recently, as she was known to be very active, posting almost every day. The last time she'd posted was on August 26, 2019, and people began to wonder what could have happened to her. By the month of September, Nikki's concern for her daughter and grandchildren had escalated to an alarming level. So on September 14, 2019, Nikki decided to take matters into her own hands and made a call to the Marion County Sheriff's Office to request a well-being check on her loved ones. In response to the request, a deputy named Chase King was dispatched to Michael and Casey's home that same day, hoping to find them safe and sound. However, upon arrival, the house appeared to be empty, and the deputy received no response when he knocked. It was as though the house had been abandoned. Chase, determined to get to the bottom of it all, approached Johnny Murphy, a neighbor who lived close by. Johnny didn't know Michael and Casey very well, but he had seen them around the neighborhood from time to time. When Chase asked Johnny if he had noticed anything strange in the area, Johnny recounted an encounter he had with a property manager only identified as Patrick 2 weeks prior. Patrick had asked Johnny to accompany him on a walkthrough of Michael and Casey's residence due to a suspicious odor emanating from the house. As they entered the house, Johnny was struck by an unbearable smell that hung thick in the air. At the time, there was still furniture and personal items within the house. As the investigation continued, Chase soon contacted Joseph Petrolino, the landlord of the property, by phone. Joseph informed the deputy that he had initiated an eviction process on Michael and Casey around the 23rd of August 2019. However, when Joseph made contact with Casey and informed her about the eviction, she had informed him that she no longer had anything to do with Michael and asked him to contact Michael for further information. Joseph then got in contact with Michael and promptly received a text message from him stating that he was leaving the residence and would leave the key on the counter. After this, Joseph repeatedly attempted to contact Michael, but failed to reach him. After the couple left, Joseph claimed that one of his property managers had cleaned the house and made some repairs. The mystery of what happened to Michael, Casey, and her 4 children only continued to deepen. Soon, another officer, Sergeant Micah Moore, arrived on the scene to join Chase. Together, they entered the house, but not before being granted access by the landlord, Joseph. As they opened the door and stepped inside, the overwhelming stench of decomposition hit them like a brick wall. The officers immediately recognized the smell from their previous experience with decaying human or animal remains. As they walked through the home, the officers noticed that it was entirely vacant, except for the kitchen appliances.
All right, and the whole property was cleaned out, correct? Did you have a cleaning crew come in and clean up, or did you just have a guy do it?
So I'm going to plead the fifth on that.
Okay.
They also detected the unmistakable scent of decomposition mixed with the smell of cleaning supplies. It appeared that new floors and baseboards had also recently been installed in some areas of the house.
Did the guy that you had clean up, did he tell you he put some fans in all the rooms and have like little fans running?
Yeah, because it smelled.
Okay. Do you know what he used to clean up with? Did he tell you?
Their search was, however, cut short when Joseph, for some reason, requested them to leave the residence. They had no choice but to comply.
All right, officer, I think that's it. I think I'm going to ask you guys to leave.
Okay, well, we're walking right out the front door right now.
Following this, the Major Crimes Unit was quickly called in, and more officers raced to the scene. It was apparent that something was terribly amiss, and they were resolute in their determination to find out what it was. They soon discovered that Casey had a 2017 white Chrysler Pacifica van registered to her, and that the vehicle had a missing back window, but the vehicle itself was nowhere to be found. As the circumstances surrounding the disappearance of Casey and the children were highly concerning, the officers entered them into the missing persons database and alerted their fellow officers to be on the lookout for the white van with the missing back window. In the early morning of September 15, 2019, detectives were still hard at work trying to piece together the whereabouts of Michael, his wife Casey, and their children. Their first attempt was to contact Michael via phone, but unfortunately, the call went straight to an error message, indicating that the caller was unreachable. Undeterred, the detectives continued their investigation, and at around 10:16 a.m. that same day, they reached out to Michael's ex-wife, Sarah Jones. They conducted a phone interview with her, hoping to gather any information that could lead them to the missing family. During the interview, Sarah revealed that she'd last seen Michael and Casey on Friday, September 13, 2019, between 5:30 p.m. and 6 p.m. at a McDonald's on Reed Street in Palatka, Florida. She'd met with Michael for a child visit. Casey had, however, stayed behind in their white Chrysler Pacifica. Sarah further noted that Michael and Casey appeared to be in good health. However, Sarah claimed that she did not see any of the couple's children on that day. When detectives asked if there was any other way to locate the family, Sarah replied that she had no idea where they could be. With this, the phone interview with Sarah came to an end. The detectives quickly realized that they needed to verify Sarah's statement. They then tasked Detective Simpson with responding to the McDonald's in Palatka to get the video surveillance from the interaction between Sarah and Michael. However, by noon of that same day, Detective Simpson reported that he had done an in-depth review of the footage from the date and time Sarah claimed to see Michael and Casey, but he'd been unable to locate the white family van in the footage. Detectives then attempted to reach Sarah again, but were unable to get through to her. It wasn't until about 2:17 p.m. on September 15th when they received a voicemail from Sarah that altered her initial statement. Sarah revealed in the voicemail that she had not seen Casey on September 13th, 2019, but she maintained that she was in contact with Michael at the McDonald's as initially described. Detectives were stumped by Sarah's changing statements. They soon got on the phone with her again, and she repeated what she'd said in the voicemail. Sarah was then informed that a detective was present at the McDonald's and would be calling her for more details about her interaction there. Moments later, it was reported by Detective Simpson, who met up with Sarah, that she completely retracted her previous statement entirely and denied ever being at the McDonald's with Michael on Friday the 13th of September 2019. With this, detectives were now more suspicious than ever. They knew they couldn't trust anything Sarah said, and they had to find another way to uncover the truth. They also couldn't help but wonder what she was hiding. At 2:17 p.m. on September 15th, 2019, the detectives also conducted a phone interview with Connie LeClaire, Michael's mother. Mrs. LeClaire revealed that Sarah, Michael's ex-wife, had informed her that she'd last seen Michael and Casey on Friday, September 13th, 2019. In a startling revelation, Mrs. LeClaire stated that she had a text conversation with her son on that same Friday, and he confirmed that both he and Casey were in good health. He even mentioned that they were planning a trip to Kentucky to visit Casey's family. With that, the interview concluded, leaving detectives with more questions than answers. At precisely 3:07 p.m., detectives received a surprising voice message from an unknown number. It was Michael himself. He disclosed that he'd heard that the law enforcement was looking for him and his family. Michael admitted that he was not in town, but would be arriving later that day or the following morning. However, when the detectives tried to call him back, their calls went unanswered, and they were unable to reach him despite repeated attempts. During this time, Richard, Casey's ex-husband, also called. He was on vacation in the United Kingdom, but had seen a Facebook post requesting information on Casey. Richard then recounted a disturbing conversation he had with his two sons, Cameron and Preston Bowers, who had spent time with them from late July to early August of 2019. Cameron had confided in his father that Michael, Casey's current husband, was physically abusive towards her. According to Cameron, Michael and Casey would have violent physical fights almost nightly, which would last for hours. Shockingly, he also revealed that Michael would also vent his anger on the children in the home, hitting them with clothes hangers or anything he could find when he became angry. The officers expressed their gratitude to Richard for providing them with this valuable information. At about 5:30 p.m., Detective Simpson found himself at the doorstep of Sarah's residence on Sunbeam Road in Jacksonville, Florida. He'd been called to investigate the discrepancies in her statements regarding the whereabouts of Michael Jones and his family. After knocking on the door with no response, he waited in the parking lot and finally caught a glimpse of Sarah's car pulling up. Upon approaching her, Sarah began recounting her history with Michael, whom she'd been with since 2007. She detailed how she'd married him in 2011, but eventually separated due to Michael's affair with his current wife, Casey. Sarah explained that communication between her and Michael had been scarce since April 2018. However, during the last 2 weeks of July 2019, Michael contacted her to say that he and Casey were splitting up.
Here and there, but, I would tell her that, Casey and I are separated and she's with her mom right now, so.
Over the next few weeks, Michael came back and forth to visit the children and took them to Marion County. Sarah revealed that Michael picked up their kids on July 26, 2019, and returned them just before school started on August 11, 2019. Michael then came back to pick up the kids on the following weekends so that Sarah could work as an Uber driver.
So, obviously, you were staying with Sarah. Were you with her last night?
I was up there, yes.
Okay. Up there at her place?
Yeah, up in Jacksonville.
Is she staying in apartments?
Yeah, she
Okay.
was in apartments.
Sarah stated that on the evening of August 30th, 2019, Michael had come to her house and had been staying there since, except for the daytime hours of September 10th, 2019, when he left to attend to some personal matters. Sarah then recounted that when she'd received a call from detectives inquiring about Casey's whereabouts, she had confronted Michael.
Basically, what was the deal with the McDonald's?
McDonald's.
She mentioned something about being at McDonald's. She met you at McDonald's on Friday or something to exchange the kids.
Oh, that's usually a meetup spot.
Okay, so that's your usual meetup spot.
We're going halfway.
He told her to tell the detectives that she'd seen him and Casey at McDonald's on September 13th.
So, did you tell her what the heck was going on?
No.
She told us that when you talked to me, or when she talked to me this morning, you were still there. Is that true?
When she spoke to you on the phone, yeah, I was there.
After getting off the phone with detectives, she then confronted Michael again and urged him to take care of whatever was going on. She told Michael to call the detectives, and he did, using their son's cell phone. Following this, Michael then left Sarah's house, saying that he was going to the Marion County Sheriff's Office to take care of the situation. He left only an hour before Detective Simpson arrived at the house. Sarah also mentioned that Michael had left behind a black Acer laptop for their kids. He'd wiped the computer clean before leaving it with them. Sarah offered to let Detective Simpson take the computer to see if there was any evidence on it. Detective Simpson completed a consent to search data storage form, which Sarah signed. He then collected the laptop and left the residence.
So you get up here into Georgia. What is there any family, any friends, anybody that's this way?
No.
So you're just driving. You got money to go anywhere?
No, that's why I had, $40 when I left, and so I figured I put some money in the tank and drove, and figured I'd get across the border, like I said, into Georgia, and sit at a rest stop and think, before people came after me. Think.
At around 8 p.m. on September 15th, 2019, deputies Wade Bennett and Chris McDonald of the Brantley County Sheriff's Office were called to the scene of a single-vehicle traffic crash that had occurred in a quiet rural area not far from the Florida-Georgia border. As they arrived, they noticed the vehicle was a white Chrysler van. It had apparently veered off the road and crashed into a concrete culvert. As they surveyed the scene, they were stunned to see that the driver was none other than Michael, the man they'd been looking for all day. Michael seemed unscathed, and when he was asked if he was hurt, he replied that he wasn't. But then something caught Deputy Bennett's attention, a smell he recognized all too well from his years of experience as a law enforcement officer. It was the unmistakable scent of a dead body. He instinctively placed his hand on his service weapon, bracing himself for the worst. He then asked Michael about the smell, expecting a plausible explanation, but nothing could have prepared him for what he heard next. With a chilling calmness, Michael revealed that the source of the smell was his wife, Casey. Shocked and taken aback, Bennett couldn't believe what he'd just heard. He then asked Michael to clarify. Michael calmly stated that he'd taken his wife's life. Her body was in the car, and he needed to be handcuffed. The deputies wasted no time in calling for backup, and soon the area was swarming with police vehicles. As backup poured in, Michael continued to reveal the grisly truth. Not only had he taken his wife's life, but their 4 children, Cameron, Preston, Markelly, and Ayanna, were also dead. The officers were stunned and horrified, but they maintained their composure. They followed Michael's lead as he took them to a wooded area where he'd hidden the bodies. This was about 6 miles from the crash site. The bodies were discovered in plastic storage totes that were covered with cut palm fronds. Following this, Michael was taken into custody. During the interrogation that followed, detectives listened in shock as he recounted the events leading up to Casey and the children's deaths. Michael revealed that he and Casey had been together for 5 years and married for 2. They'd met while working together at a veterinary clinic.
What's you guys' relationship like? I mean, is this an ongoing thing where you guys are at each other like this, like fighting, or?
It just got worse. Like, you know, little things all the time with her. She would come at me, and we argue, and never really got physical.
Michael had been going through a divorce with Sarah when he started dating Casey. Michael and Casey's relationship was not without problems. However, on July 10, 2019, things took a turn for the worse. On that particular day, she'd called him at work and accused him of cheating. According to Michael, he'd hung up on her, and then he'd turned off his phone. But when he arrived home, Casey wouldn't leave him alone. She followed him around the house, shining her phone's flashlight in his face and tapping him on the head with her cell phone. Their argument escalated into a yelling match, and Michael ordered Casey to leave. But Casey picked up a metal baseball bat.
She actually reached, like, we have a recliner in the living room, reached and grabbed after the bat, and kind of, hit me, broadside me or whatever.
In a fit of rage, Michael took the bat from her and hit her head repeatedly until she died. Afterward, he wrapped her up and put her in a tote, which he placed in the master bedroom closet.
Kids?
Yeah, they're asleep.
Where did they sleep at now?
The boys have a bedroom, and then the 2 girls sleep in the living room.
The children were all asleep when this incident took place. According to Michael, there were bloodstains on the master bedroom door, and he cleaned them up as best as he could. He knew he had to act fast and get rid of the evidence before anyone found out what he'd done. So he placed the metal baseball bat and other items used to clean up the blood in trash bags and disposed of them in a dumpster on Highway 441. As Michael continued his confession to the detectives, the details became more disturbing. After taking his wife's life, he felt trapped and had to keep up the act that she was alive. So he began using her phone to text and post on social media to make it seem like she was still around.
Let me ask you this. does Nikki and her sisters and everybody start calling? What's going on with the phone? I know she's got a phone, right?
Yeah, she had a phone, so I had her phone for a while, and I would text and pretend to be Casey. And
it was a twisted game that became all too real. The detectives asked Michael if he could have walked away from the argument with Casey before it escalated, and he replied that he could have. However, he chose to stay and let things spiral out of control. Michael also admitted to facilitating the drop-off and pickup of Cameron and Preston Bowers to their father, Richard. The boys had been with their father for 2 weeks, and Michael confirmed that he later picked them up from his father in Leesburg. He also confirmed dropping off his 2 daughters, Mercalli and Ayanna Jones, at their grandmother's house and picking them up at a later date. As Michael Jones continued his chilling confession, he revealed the gruesome details of how he'd taken the lives of all 4 children. He began by recounting how he went for Cameron first. It was late at night when Michael entered the children's bedroom and pulled Cameron off his bed, choking him with his bare hands. As Cameron struggled and kicked, Michael pressed his knee into his chest, tightening his grip until the boys stopped moving. When it was over, Michael stuffed Cameron's lifeless body into a suitcase and placed it in the corner of the east bedroom. The following night, Michael took Preston's life. His hands were sore from the previous night's struggle with Cameron, so he thought of a new approach. He went to the guest bathroom and turned on the tap. He stopped the water from draining out of the bathtub with a washcloth. Following this, he quietly crept into the children's bedroom where Preston was sleeping soundly. He grabbed a zip tie and looped it around Preston's neck, pulling tight until he was gasping for air. Michael then dragged Preston into the bathroom and shoved his face into the bathtub, pressing down until he stopped struggling. After Preston died, he placed his body into a trash bag and left him in the bathroom for several days. He later placed him into a tote. He also used kitty litter to soak up the bodily fluids that came from the decomposing bodies.
I don't know what day it was, but I was actually down up by the city hall looking down at the police department, which I believe is Marion County Police Department.
Okay.
I sat there for several hours with my daughters.
Days after taking the lives of his 2 boys, Michael found himself in Bellevue City Hall with his 2 daughters, contemplating his next move. He spent hours sitting there, staring at the Bellevue Police Department, debating whether to turn himself in or wait for someone to contact him.
So then you're answering text messages back and forth, and
yeah, so
that's tough, man.
And I trashed her phone.
But fear had a grip on him, and he couldn't gather the courage to surrender to the authorities. He broke Casey's cell phone and tossed it in the trash before aimlessly driving around for hours. When he finally returned home, the darkness in him had taken hold, and he decided to end the lives of his 2 little girls. Michael filled the bathtub with water and went to get Mercalli, who was still awake. He took her into the bathroom and held her underwater until she stopped struggling. And then he did the same thing to Ayanna on the same day, taking her young life as well. Both girls were placed into the same tote. Michael continued by saying that at the end of August or beginning of September 2019, he'd loaded all of the dead bodies, which he previously placed into totes, into the family's van. He also used cleaners, mothballs, and fly spray in the van to try to mask the putrid smell of the decomposing bodies. As the interrogation continued, Michael revealed that he'd lied to his ex-wife, Sarah, about his relationship with Casey. He'd convinced her that they'd separated, but in reality, he'd taken her life along with those of their 4 children. But even more unsettling was his admission that he'd coached Sarah on what to say to the authorities when they called her on September 15th, 2019.
Did she talk to you? Did you tell her what to say to me, or?
You've seen me or whatever, you've seen Casey, you've seen everybody, you know. So yeah, I guess I did tell her.
However, he admitted to the detectives that Sarah had no knowledge of the murders and was not involved in any way. He insisted that their relationship was purely based on co-parenting and nothing else.
Did you tell her what the heck was going on?
No.
After leaving Sarah's house, he said that he pretended to be heading to Marion County to speak with law enforcement, but instead fled the state.
What do you think was going to happen today after you left? What was the plan?
The only thing really I had in plan was just to get out of Florida for now, or cross the border here and set a rest stop and, try and think.
Feeling overwhelmed and unsure of his next move, he traveled aimlessly until he saw paths off the side of the road and decided to pull over to urinate. It was then that he made a gruesome decision to remove the totes containing the bodies from the family van and dispose of them in the woods. However, he left the tote with Casey Jones's body behind. Afterwards, he continued northbound. At some point, he eventually lost control of the van and crashed.
Tell me about this. This is another question I had. How did you wreck the van? What happened there?
Like I said, after I got out of the woods driving or whatever, the GPS is like rerouting me, and so I'm messing with the GPS, and it's touch screen, and I'm looking this way, and I swerved out the road once, and then kind of like, okay, pay attention, and I swerved again, and that was it, just kept going down.
Following all these revelations, the detectives then asked Michael if he'd been under the influence of any drugs or alcohol while committing the murders. He responded that he was sober and had a clear mind.
Obviously, the one question is, everybody's asked me, why? I understand why Casey, why the boys, and why your daughters.
Michael disclosed that he'd taken the children's lives to keep up the facade that Casey was still alive. He also mentioned that he did it partly because he was angry at her and the kids were related to her. With that, the interview with Michael came to an end, leaving the detectives to grapple with the depths of his depravity and the loss of innocent lives.
Obviously, you know that there's going to be more charges forthcoming.
Of course.
Okay. I've just got to make contact with the attorney's office, and you're going to be charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder.
Yeah.
Okay. On top of the second-degree murder.
Yeah.
Okay.
After being charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder for his children and 1 count of second-degree murder for his wife, Michael waited 3 long years for his trial to begin. In November of 2022, he finally pleaded guilty to all charges. The court then moved on to the penalty phase of the trial, where the prosecution and defense presented their arguments on what Michael's punishment should be. The prosecution argued for the death penalty, while the defense believed that life in prison was more appropriate. During this phase, a renowned psychologist named Dr. Harold Bursdane testified for the defense. He spoke of Michael's mental state, claiming that he'd been hearing Casey's voice after taking her life. Dr. Harold said that the voices intensified with time and Michael had no control over it. According to Dr. Harold, Casey's voice told Michael that their children would be safer with her, and he had no choice but to obey it and commit the crimes. The defense also brought in Dr. Stephen Nelson, a neurologist, to testify on behalf of Michael. Dr. Nelson claimed that Michael's brain was vulnerable to mental illness due to a combination of head trauma, traumatic life events, and a history of mental illness. He explained that Michael's problems with decision-making were linked to brain abnormalities. However, despite the defense's arguments, the jury recommended the death penalty for Michael. And on April 28, 2023, Michael was sentenced to death. The courtroom was tense as the judge read out the sentence. Michael's lawyers, however, are not giving up. They revealed their plans to appeal the sentence. And with the sentence of death handed down, the case of Michael Jones comes to a close. A tragic story of a man who committed unspeakable acts against his own family, leaving a community in shock and disbelief. In the aftermath, many are left wondering if this was truly a case of mental illness, or if there were any underlying factors at play. So, what do you think? Was Michael's case a tragic result of a vulnerable mind, or was something else driving his actions? On the afternoon of July 11, 2005, Brittany Lortz, an 18-year-old recent high school graduate, was found by her stepfather, Reginald Weeks, lying dead on her bed in her Salisbury, North Carolina home. The cause of her death was a stab wound to her neck. Initially, investigators suspected a failed robbery as the motive for the crime. However, as they dug deeper into the case, unsettling revelations and shocking family secrets began to surface. What events led to Brittany's tragic fate? What dark truths lay hidden within her family's past, waiting to be exposed? Salisbury is a city in North Carolina that has a population of more than 35,000 residents. Located in Rowan County, the city is steeped in rich history and boasts of stunning architecture, streets lined with unique shops, and a thriving art scene. From the Railwalk Studios and Gallery to the vibrant Salisbury Historic District, there's something for everyone to explore. However, in this city, a tragic crime unfolded. To understand the full story, we must first travel to Forsyth County, North Carolina, where it all began. Brittany Lords was born on May 7, 1987, in Forsyth County, North Carolina, to Roderick Lords and Angela Vontina.
She was something special. Everybody around her knew she was special. She had a heart of gold. She was an angel.
However, as time passed, Brittany's parents' feelings for each other changed, and they eventually went their separate ways. The reasons for their breakup are still unknown. Angela, Brittany's mother, went on to marry a man named Reginald Weeks Jr. Angela, together with her mother and stepfather, lived at 916 Scales Street in the town of Salisbury, Rowan County, North Carolina. Brittany's biological father, Roderick, remained a constant presence and continued to play an important role in her life.
I was always close to her. Took her to the park, took her out, went to eat. I did father stuff, you know.
Brittany attended North Rowan High School and had a busy life during her time there. She took on various roles, such as being the Sunday school secretary, singing in the youth choir, and serving on the Junior Ushers Board. In May 2005, Brittany proudly donned her graduation cap and bid farewell to North Rowan High School. At 18 years old, she planned to attend Rowan Cabarrus Community College in the upcoming fall, and later transferred to North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University to study education. She had a dream of becoming a teacher. However, before college began, Brittany decided to find a job for the summer. She wanted to stay busy. It was an opportunity to earn some money while preparing for her educational journey. Brittany embraced the summer job, dedicating herself to the tasks at hand. Each day she worked diligently, knowing that this experience would contribute to her personal growth and resilience. Now, Brittany had a half-sister named Asti Lords, who was the daughter of her biological father from another woman. Despite having different mothers, they shared a strong bond and were very close. On June 19, 2005, which was Father's Day, they decided to visit their father, Roderick. Asti, who was then 15 years old, lived with her mother and stepfather. During their visit, both girls had a day filled with fun and adventure. It was a carefree and enjoyable day. Little did they know, amidst their laughter and excitement, that they would never see each other again. On the afternoon of July 11, 2005, a terrible incident happened in Salisbury. The police department received an urgent call reporting a stabbing at Brittany's home.
911, do you have an emergency?
She's not breathing. We don't know what to do. She's been stabbed.
Within minutes, Officer Brent Hall arrived at the scene. Emergency medical services were already present, and a few concerned individuals stood outside the house. Officer Hall entered the home and made his way to Brittany's bedroom. He carefully observed the distressing scene before him, taking note of every detail. She was on the floor next to her bed, and it was obvious that she was dead. Officer Hall noticed that she was still dressed in her pajamas and had bloodstains marking her neck. The urgency to understand the situation compelled him to inquire about the location of her stab wound, which the emergency medical services workers confirmed to be her neck. Seeking answers amid the chaos, Officer Hall turned his attention to Brittany's stepfather, Reginald. Reginald, who was accompanied by his father, explained how he'd come across the devastating sight. He and his father had stopped by the house at 4:15 p.m. to retrieve some work documents when they discovered Brittany bleeding on her bed. Together with his father, they did their best to perform CPR until professional assistance arrived. Officer Hall recognized the severity of the situation and promptly called for additional support from investigators. Investigator Stephen Holmes from the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, along with a team of colleagues, swiftly arrived at the scene. Without delay, they began their examination. Starting with the front door, the investigators found no signs of forced entry. However, upon entering, they discovered a disheveled interior, suggesting that it had been ransacked. Proceeding to Brittany's bedroom, they were confronted with the sight of her lifeless body, marked by visible ligature marks encircling her neck. Investigator Holmes also noticed a wire hanger nearby, which he suspected may have caused the marks.
There was a hanger found in Brittany's room. The hanger was unbound, lying on the floor. To our eye, it seemed as if the hanger could have made those ligature marks. It appeared as if Brittany had been both strangled and stabbed.
There was no immediate evidence to suggest that Brittany had been abused, as she remained fully clothed. As investigator Holmes tried to piece together the puzzle of Brittany's tragic demise, he considered the possibility that the crime might have been a failed robbery. However, he couldn't ignore the fact that nothing seemed to have been stolen. A computer stood untouched, and the family's valuables, including credit cards and jewelry, remained undisturbed. The ransacked state of the home suggested that someone had been searching for something, but what that something was remained a mystery. Undeterred, the team of investigators then embarked on a thorough search of the premises, hoping to find a weapon that could provide vital clues. However, their efforts yielded nothing. Following this, they then decided to collect several items for further examination. This included an answering machine, bedding, a cell phone, checkbooks, a coat hanger, a computer, a jewelry case, and other miscellaneous objects. Additionally, they gathered blood, fibers, fingerprints, and hair samples from Brittany's bedroom. They hoped that every piece of evidence they collected would play a crucial role in helping them understand what had happened. With their tasks completed, the investigators made the difficult decision to remove Brittany's lifeless body from the scene. Her delicate form was transported with utmost care, destined for the autopsy room. Less than 24 hours after Brittany's death, investigator Holmes and Detective J.D. Barber conducted interviews with her stepfather, Reginald, and her mother, Angela. They sought to piece together the events of that tragic day. Angela shared her work schedule, explaining that she'd been at her job from 7 a.m. until 3:30 p.m. She'd returned home around 4 p.m. Attention then turned to Reginald, Brittany's stepfather, who gave a heart-wrenching account that painted a picture of profound loss and unimaginable pain. He told investigators that he departed from home on that fateful day at approximately 7 a.m. to work at a job site on Bourbon Street. From there, he went to another location on Pinewood Avenue to repair a bathroom. He revealed that he then planned to meet with a woman named Amanda Scott, who needed work done on her home. But before he did this, he and his father went to his home to retrieve some documents. Reginald's account continued with the haunting discovery he made upon entering the home. He'd noticed that the drawers and computer stand were opened, and this had prompted him to call out for Brittany, but he got no response. He said his apprehension grew as he approached her bedroom, where he found her lying motionless on the bed. With disbelief and anguish gripping his heart, he tried to wake her up, only to notice a wound on her neck. He instinctively cried out while cradling her to his chest. The sound of his distress reached his father, who'd been sitting outside in the truck the whole time. It was at this moment that Angela returned from her day of work and was confronted with a scene that would forever haunt her memories. Reginald's explanation appeared credible. It was also bolstered by his willingness to cooperate fully with the police. He even volunteered to undergo a polygraph examination. Satisfied with the information he provided, investigators then turned their attention to Brittany's biological father, Roderick. However, their inquiries soon cleared him of any suspicion, as they discovered he'd been out of town during the time of the incident. With no immediate leads to pursue, investigators embarked on a tireless mission to gather information from the neighborhood where the crime had occurred. Door to door, they canvassed the area, seeking anyone who might have witnessed or heard something unusual on the day Brittany died. Interestingly, some residents mentioned glimpsing a man running between houses on that day. However, no one had taken a good look at him to be able to provide a detailed description. Despite this setback, investigators remained steadfast in their pursuit of justice. They were driven by the desire to bring closure to the grieving family affected by the devastating loss. As the investigation unfolded, the results of Brittany's autopsy were revealed, shedding light on the details of her death. It was determined that she'd been strangled with a coat hanger and rendered unconscious, but ultimately, it was the deep stab wound to her neck that proved fatal. Surprisingly, there were no signs of defensive wounds on Brittany's body, and no foreign DNA was found on her. However, during the examination, a concerning discovery emerged. She had an injury on her private parts. The medical examiner, while performing the autopsy, speculated that it could have been the result of consensual activity. This revelation took the police down a different path, leading them to consider the possibility that Brittany had engaged in an unconventional and potentially dangerous intercourse involving strangulation. They began to theorize that her death may have been an accident, where a planned rendezvous went horribly wrong. The idea that whomever had killed her had panicked and manipulated the crime scene began to take shape in their minds. With this startling twist, investigators knew that untangling the web of secrets surrounding Brittany's personal life would be crucial in solving the case. Their investigation soon led them to a young man simply identified as Terry. He was someone Brittany had dated before she died. As the authorities sat down with Terry for an interview, they could sense the weight of sorrow and genuine grief in his eyes. Terry revealed that he'd been in a relationship with Brittany for several months, but their paths had diverged 2 weeks before her death when her family embarked on a vacation. He also gave them the location of where he'd been on the day of Brittany's death. Following the interview, the investigators carefully analyzed Terry's account, seeking to establish a timeline of events and discern any potential significance. His immediate cooperation and evident distress struck a chord within them, leading them to believe that he had no involvement in Brittany's death. Yet the questions remained: who else could hold the key to the truth? And what secrets lay hidden beneath the surface of Brittany's seemingly ordinary life? Amid swirling rumors, suspicions began to also focus on another man named Jerome Buckler. He was Brittany's ex-boyfriend. He had a troubled history and a criminal record, making him a potential person of interest. However, when questioned by the police, he displayed intense emotions and willingly offered to undergo a polygraph test. He also provided hair and blood samples, all in an effort to prove his innocence. As the investigation continued, a series of intriguing developments emerged, adding further complexity to the case. Investigators learned from Angela, Brittany's mother, that Brittany had undergone an abortion 5 years before her death. Although they attempted to uncover the identity of who had impregnated her, Angela became guarded and refused to provide any additional details. Due to this, the investigators fully turned their attention to Angela and Reginald. They managed to acquire photographs of the couple's home that were taken the day of the murder, and upon careful examination, they made an intriguing observation. Reginald had appeared in some of the photographs, and detectives noticed something significant. His shirt did not have any bloodstains. It was a detail that contradicted his claim of cradling Brittany in his arms. This was because if he'd actually done so, his shirt would have been stained by her blood. This inconsistency raised doubts about the truthfulness of Reginald's account and placed him under closer scrutiny as a potential suspect in the case. Investigators then carefully reviewed Reginald's claimed schedule to verify his alibi. He stated that he left home at 7 a.m. on the day of the tragedy and went straight to the job site, not returning until later. However, they soon discovered that his claim was false. They managed to locate 2 witnesses who reported seeing Reginald turn back and return home shortly after leaving. These witnesses also remembered seeing Reginald at his house during lunchtime, and he appeared to be distressed. Intrigued by these findings, investigators decided to look into the woman, Amanda Scott, whom Reginald had mentioned meeting for repair work. However, they encountered difficulties in finding any information about her. There were no records or evidence to confirm her existence. Amidst the web of inconsistencies, detectives found themselves increasingly convinced that Reginald was responsible for Brittany's death. The pressing question that remained unanswered was whether the murder had been planned or if it had escalated from a heated argument. As their investigation unfolded, evidence emerged suggesting a troubling and strained relationship between Brittany and Reginald. Asti Lortz, Brittany's half-sister, disclosed to the detectives that Brittany harbored a deep disdain for Reginald.
Brittany couldn't go anywhere. She couldn't do anything. She never really got to live her life as a teenager.
She described him as controlling, often forbidding Brittany from engaging in any activities outside the home without his supervision. Friends of Brittany also stepped forward, sharing their own encounters with her fears about Reginald. Disturbingly, Brittany had confided in one friend that she had been abused by him. However, when the friend expressed anger and threatened to involve the authorities, Brittany hastily retracted her statement, pleading with her friend to keep it a secret. These revelations painted a picture of a guarded and toxic dynamic between Brittany and Reginald, fueling detectives' growing suspicion that he played a pivotal role in her untimely demise. Investigators soon pieced together a chilling sequence of events that unfolded on that fateful day. They believed that on the morning of Brittany's death, a heated argument erupted between her and Reginald. In a moment of unchecked anger, Reginald lost control and resorted to drastic measures. He forcefully restrained Brittany on the bed, using a coat hanger to tighten his grip around her neck. As the tension escalated, Brittany lost consciousness. Panicked and realizing the gravity of his actions, Reginald chose to end her life by stabbing her in the neck. Driven by fear and desperation, he then staged the crime scene to obscure the true nature of his monstrous act. In a disturbing twist, he inflicted a wound upon Brittany's private parts. Also, by ransacking Brittany's room and the rest of the house, he aimed to create the illusion of a failed robbery, further muddying the waters of truth. Armed with all this evidence, investigators confronted Reginald. But despite their allegations, he maintained his innocence. Throughout the ordeal, Angela stood by her husband, unwavering in her support, despite the mounting evidence against him. Both Reginald and Angela, now aware of the storm gathering around them, quickly sought legal counsel. Following this, investigators tried to obtain blood and hair samples to solidify their case against Reginald. However, the couple adamantly refused to yield. It was only when a judge intervened, issuing an order, that Reginald was forced to comply with the authorities' demand. Finally, on August 12, 2005, investigators executed a search warrant, taking Reginald into custody and charging him with first-degree murder. It was a significant step forward in their pursuit of justice. The community watched with bated breath, anxiously awaiting the unfolding of the truth. A couple of days after Reginald's arrest, a preliminary hearing took place. During the hearing, the judge informed him that he could potentially face the death penalty. Days soon turned into weeks, and on October 19, 2005, Reginald was released on a hefty $350,000 bond. However, his newfound freedom was short-lived. The wheels of justice continued to turn, and on February 2, 2006, he was once again apprehended, this time on an assault charge in regards to Brittany's case. The community watched in disbelief as he was released on an even higher bond of $500,000. From there, the legal battle intensified, dragging on for months. In 2007, Reginald made an Alford plea, a decision that allowed him to maintain his innocence while acknowledging the overwhelming evidence against him. The plea deal presented an opportunity for him to avoid a potentially harsher sentence. He pleaded guilty to reduced charges of second-degree murder and second-degree assault. In 2008, Reginald was sentenced to a maximum sentence of 11 years and 8 months in prison. He was released on probation on January 20, 2015, as part of the plea agreement. Finally, in March 2015, he walked out of prison a free man. The conclusion of his incarceration left a bitter taste for those who mourned Brittany, as the punishment appeared lenient in comparison to the profound loss suffered. The case of Brittany Lortz remains a haunting tragedy, filled with unanswered questions and unsettling revelations. May her memory serve as a call to action, urging us to be aware of the signs of abuse, to offer support to those in need, and to strive for a world where every individual can feel safe and valued. But as we conclude this chapter, one lingering question persists. Why did Angela, Brittany's mother, choose to stand by Reginald despite the evidence that pointed towards his guilt? On the 15th of December 2022, the tranquility of Somerset Pond was shattered by a horrific incident. The Independence Police received a 911 call that Thursday from the concerned co-workers of 32-year-old Amberly Harris.
The reason for my call is we have an employee that has not reported to work in almost a week. Do have reason to be concerned.
The officers conducted a welfare check at Amberly's apartment, but they were met with a gruesome crime scene.
Is Amberly here? Amberly? She passed away.
Amberly's disfigured corpse was found lying in her bedroom. She'd been shot point blank in the face with a shotgun. The major question on the detectives' minds wasn't who murdered Amberly, as the killer was the very same person who answered the door. So the two questions they asked themselves were, why did he kill Amberly? What were the events that led to her gruesome murder? Independence, a city about 15 minutes south of Cincinnati, Ohio, in Kenton County, is known for its tight-knit, supportive community of over 28,000 residents. The residents are warm and friendly, offering hospitality to both newcomers and long-term inhabitants. Safety is a top priority in Independence, with low crime rates and a strong law enforcement presence, providing a secure environment for everyone. Many find it an ideal place to call home, free from the constant worry of crime. This welcoming and safe community has attracted new residents over the years, and among those new residents was 32-year-old Amberly Harris, a woman who had chosen Independence as her new home due to the promised safety and security. Amberly Nicole Harris was born on the 7th of September 1990 to parents Tammy and Daryl Harris. She grew up in Rowan County, North Carolina, with 4 other siblings, Jessica, Alyssa, Wesley, and Brandon. Amberly was often described as a free-spirited, kind-hearted, and loving young woman by the people around her. She always knew how to light up a room and put smiles on people's faces. Her kind and caring nature made people gravitate towards her, and she was loved by her family and colleagues. She was also the mother of 3 beautiful children. She gave birth to her 2 boys, Jojo and Hunter, while she courted a man named Jones, and she had her daughter Michaela during her relationship with a man named Strand. Amberly was an amazing mother who loved spending time with her family. She enjoyed going to the beach with her children whenever she had the chance, and she was also an avid lover of animals, as she kept many pets. The people close to her often said Amberly was always seen with a smile on her face, but her life wasn't perfect. Sometime during her late 20s, Amberly struggled with substance abuse. She'd been through a lot of adversity during those years, and it was a very hard period in her life. However, Amberly wasn't going to let the hard times keep her down. In an effort to improve her life and for the sake of her children, Amberly fought against the growing addiction. It was a long and tumultuous journey, but in the end, Amberly emerged victorious. It wasn't easy, but she was able to overcome the addiction and come out stronger. The changes didn't stop there. Amberly, who was 30 at the time, decided to move from Mooresville, North Carolina, to Independence City, northern Kentucky. It was a significant move, as Independence was 7 hours away from her hometown, and she had no family or friends there. However, Amberly had secured a job at Bluegrass Quality Meats, a food production company close to the city. She was given a position in production and quality assurance and couldn't wait to start. Besides the job, there was another reason why Amberly decided to move to Independence, and that reason was a man named Tommy Joe Powell. Amberly had started a relationship with Tommy, and the couple lived together in apartment 4653 in the Somerset Pond apartment complex on Beech Grove Drive. Amberly loved and cared for Tommy, but they had a very abusive relationship, and it wasn't always smooth sailing for the couple. Tommy was Amberly's on and off boyfriend for the 2 years she lived in Independence. During their time together, some of the couple's neighbors described Tommy as a funny, helpful, and outgoing guy, while others described him as a very odd, quiet, and reserved man. The neighbors all had different opinions on Tommy and his character, but the only person who really knew him was Amberly. During the early months of their relationship, the couple would usually get into fights. Amberly often told herself that no couple was perfect, so she was willing to overlook the frequent squabbles at first. However, it wasn't long before Tommy started getting physical. In the later months of their relationship, most of the couple's arguments ended in physical fights. These fights were often instigated by Tommy, but as the disagreements grew, so did Tommy's anger. Many neighbors could hear the couple screaming at each other late at night, and Amberly's love for Tommy soon turned to fear. While she was at work, Amberly would tell her coworkers that she was scared to go home, and most of them would offer her an extra bedroom and tell her to stay with them. However, Amberly knew she couldn't stay with her coworkers forever, and she always went home eventually. As time went on, Amberly sent her mother videos of the abuse she was suffering. Amberly had been documenting Tommy's abuse in case she ever needed it, and her family back in North Carolina constantly urged her to leave Tommy and go to a woman's shelter, but Amberly never did. She told her family that it wasn't because she didn't want to. It was because she was scared he would follow her. Things reached a breaking point on the 20th of November, 2021. Tommy was infuriated with Amberly's use of social media, and he picked a fight with her. The argument got so heated at one point that Tommy struck Amberly in the face and started choking her to the point where she almost blacked out. Amberly managed to escape his grip and ran barefoot to the Independence Police Department. The records show Amberly had severe abrasions and bruises on her face, neck, and chest. The complaint was filed on the 20th of November 2021, and Tommy was convicted of domestic violence assault in April 2022. Tommy was charged with first-degree strangulation, an offense punishable by 5 to 10 years. But when it was time for Amberly to cooperate with prosecutors and testify against Tommy, she didn't, as she was scared of what he would do when he got out. Since Amberly didn't come forward as a witness, which would have allowed prosecutors to charge Tommy with a felony for strangulation, the charge was reduced to fourth-degree domestic violence assault. Tommy was allowed to plead guilty to an assault charge instead of facing the full felony charge, which would have resulted in imprisonment. The incident was treated as a misdemeanor, and Tommy was sentenced to conditional discharge. The court ordered him to undergo anger management, domestic violence treatment, and batterer intervention classes, but he was non-compliant with the treatment program, attending none of them. Even after everything that had happened with the domestic violence incident, Amberly still cared about Tommy. A part of her believed he could change and get better. He was also on probation, so she knew he wouldn't do anything that would land him in trouble while they still lived together. The couple continued living together for an additional 7 months after the initial incident, and while they still had occasional fights, they never escalated to anything serious. It wasn't long before December arrived, and Amberly, who loved the Christmas holiday, put up a Christmas tree in their apartment. She then called her family on the 10th of December 2022, telling them she was making plans to come home to North Carolina for Christmas, intending to surprise her mother, Tammy. She worked out her plans with her sister Jessica and her brother-in-law, Michael. Once everything was finalized, she reminded them to keep her trip back home a secret from Tammy before bidding her goodbyes. Amberly couldn't wait to surprise her mom on Christmas and looked forward to reuniting with her children and the entire family on the 25th. The date was the 15th of December 2022. It was around 9 a.m. on that Thursday, and the employees of Bluegrass Quality Meats, located at 2648 Crescent Springs Pike, Erlanger, Kentucky, were worried sick about their coworker, Amberly Harris. Amberly hadn't come to work for the past several days, which was very unusual. She'd worked in production and quality assurance for the past 2 years, and during that period, Amberly was never late, and she always made sure to call in case there was an issue. Both Amberly's co-workers and her employer knew something was wrong, but they waited to see if she would come in later during the day. As the hours passed by and Amberly still hadn't arrived, they finally decided to call the Independence Police Department around 2 p.m, asking for a welfare check at her apartment.
The reason for my call is we have an employee that has not reported to work in almost a week. Do have reason to be concerned.
The call was received by Independence Police Captain Brian Ferriorni, and a few minutes later, a few Independence officers, led by Captain Ferriorni and Independence Detective Adam Strine, made their way to the apartment in the 4600 block of Beech Grove Drive for a well-being check at the request of Amberly's employer. The authorities arrived around 2:57 p.m., and after knocking on the door, they were greeted by a man who made a disturbing statement that shocked them all.
Here. Amberly? She passed away.
What? You did what?
What?
I shot her. Where is she?
Just put your hands where
Where is she?
Watching something. She's in the back.
What?
Tommy's immediate confession stunned the Independence officers. They'd come all this way for a welfare check, but it had turned into a murder investigation in a matter of seconds. Tommy was immediately handcuffed, and the officers rushed into the apartment to find Amberly.
Put your hands where
Where is she?
Watching something, Brady. She's in the back.
What? Independence Police, make yourself known! Independence Police, make yourself known!
Independence 19, turn that way.
Independence Police, janitor, make yourself known! Go.
K132 and K138, third floor, 4653 Beech Grove, 4653.
Watch your footing. Watch your footing.
Clear in here, right?
Huh?
Clear.
Independence Police, janitor, make yourself known!
Make yourself known!
Go.
132 clear.
Oh, she's down.
What?
I got she's down.
The officers found Amberly's body in the master bedroom. She was lying in a small space between the bed and the wall. It appeared she'd been shot in the head at close range. The officers immediately called for backup before securing the crime scene.
Make sure you're watching where you're standing and don't touch anything.
Yes, sir.
When? When did you do this?
While the crime scene was being secured, Tommy was searched by the remaining officer and asked to identify himself.
Our victim here, so we're trying to figure out further.
Or
What's your name?
Check, male subject over the door, admitting
Tommy?
shot the victim.
Okay.
Just sit in your car.
Yeah, we'll work that out in a second, but I gotta make sure my guys inside are okay. Alright. Rungi, you guys good?
Yeah, we're good.
Alright. Hold on.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
As his Miranda rights were read to him by the officer outside, the officers in the house already had a disturbing suspicion. They could tell from the state of Amberly's corpse that her murder wasn't recent, so to clear their doubts, they asked Tommy when he had shot her. The ghastly crime scene was already a disturbing sight, but what horrified the detectives even more were the words that came out of Tommy's mouth when he answered their question.
Tommy, I'm gonna read you something real quick, okay?
Miranda right.
Yeah. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can or will be used against you in court. You have the right to an attorney before making a statement and have your attorney with you during questioning. You cannot afford an attorney, desire one, the court appoint one for you. You may stop questioning any time but refuse to answer further or requesting consult with your attorney. Do you understand these rights, Tommy? All right. Is there anyone else inside? Is it just her?
All my pups.
Okay, is it just Amberly? All right. Is it contained in there? When did all this just happen?
Sunday night, except Monday morning, Sunday.
Monday morning.
Monday morning. Those were the words that came from Tommy's mouth. Amberly was shot approximately 3 days earlier. And what Tommy's answer really meant was that after he'd shot Amberly, he'd left her body to rot in the same house where he slept, ate, and carried out his daily activities for the past 3 days. The authorities couldn't believe their ears when they heard Tommy had been living with Amberly's rotting corpse for the last 3 days without calling 911 or informing anyone. They'd already found a gun in plain sight in Tommy's home, and they assumed this firearm was the murder weapon.
There's a gun in one of the rooms down.
No, the gun's under the bed.
On the bed? Right.
Clearing air, Rocky. Independent 7. Okay, contact. 1, 2, and 3.
Also, firearm on the ground?
Yeah.
As 2 officers went back inside the house to locate the murder weapon, Tommy was escorted to the police car where he was asked to paint a clearer picture of what happened that morning.
We're gonna go in the back on the other side. Other side, my man.
A little too tight.
A little too tight? Hold on a second. Just take a seat. I'm gonna leave this door cracked. You good? Do you need a squad or anything to check you out? Alright, do you want to tell me what happened here?
We're fighting. He's trashing my shit again.
Okay. Do you want to tell me what happened here? When were you guys fighting?
Sunday morning.
Sunday morning? What started the fight?
Trashing my shit.
What was it? What was it?
She was stealing my TV and stuff.
Okay. And then what happened?
I lost control.
You what now?
I lost control.
Lost control? What made you lose control?
I don't know.
Are you okay?
No.
So when you say you lost control, what do you mean? What'd you shoot her with?
Independence 19 direct, Independence 30.
20 gauge?
Go ahead.
Alright, so it was a shotgun you shot her with?
Hey, I gotta get my body camera. Do you guys need anything from the office at this point? I don't believe so.
Alright, Tommy, you okay right now?
7 and 30.
I'm gonna keep my eyes on you, but I'm gonna roll down this one.
The officer who took him could tell Tommy seemed out of it. His answers were incoherent, and he tried asking Tommy some questions to see if he was in his right mind.
How long you been inside the house for?
Where?
3 or 4 days? Have you left the house or anything?
3 to 7. There's no one else at the office.
You been in shock since? Yeah. Okay. You don't know what today is, though?
Yeah, 132, signal 3.
Do you know what month it is? Who's the president?
It was evident that Tommy was still in shock after the murder, but he was able to confirm that he'd been living with Amberly's body for the past 3 to 4 days. The officers were still going to carry out an autopsy on Amber's body later down the line to give them a more definitive answer, but it seemed Tommy still wasn't sure if it was Sunday or Monday morning. A few minutes after Tommy was taken to the police car, the officers' reinforcements had arrived. With additional officers and detectives on the scene, they decided to carry out another search of the couple's apartment. However, due to procedure, they needed verbal consent from Tommy to carry out an official search of the entire house.
Mirandize him.
He's been Miranda.
Mirandize him, see if he'll give you consent to search on the body cam. And if he gives you consent, you can process. And then I don't know.
I mean, by that
whoever, I don't know if they're going to have Strine or whoever to come take him back. They'll probably want to take him back and interview him.
Tommy, do we have consent to search your whole house?
Tommy was then taken to the Independence police station by an officer while the remaining officers stayed behind to search the house.
Said he shot her Monday. Her face is covered. She's down in between the bed and the wall. Okay, just give us, if it's obvious right now and we don't need any further care until we can...
Yeah, I just got to put her on the monitor first before I say yes.
Alright, so we got rigor as well being checked. We got rigor, but we're not moving anything until we get more people.
As more officials arrive, those first on the scene.
After another search of the house, the officers decided to wait for additional help from the forensic department before moving anything.
One person to check.
Okay. We're gonna wait on We're gonna wait on that until more people get here. If that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I got his first.
Yeah, I'm gonna put. I got put on 4 lead to verify completely.
I want to.
Do you have a time frame of all this?
Monday.
Between the bed and the.
That's what we heard. He shot her Monday. He said.
Well, I didn't see what this initial call was.
A well-being check.
Somebody else called about it?
Yes.
Okay.
And yeah. There's blood splatter on the wall, and she's covered up. Her face is covered up.
Yeah, he covered her.
So was
something's
he here to
covered.
do the well-being check? That dude?
He was here at the house. Like he opened the door and said,
While the first responders briefed the new officers who had just arrived at the crime scene, the forensics department, along with the additional help they were waiting for, had also arrived. With everyone now at the scene, they were able to continue the search.
Chief, are you in here? I'm coming through with the camera on to do a walkthrough.
There's a TV on the floor in the bedroom where this occurred. That's just, it looks like it may have been on a shelf or whatever, it may have been knocked off. But other than that, no, it doesn't look like it's like destroyed. It just looks like it's been knocked off. The door does look like it's been kicked off the hinges. Yeah, make sure you move this around right here and get whatever these are, because it looks like these pillows might be everywhere. Relating to, we want to call Melissa just to help out once we start getting evidence stuff.
Tommy arrived at the Independence Police Station at exactly 3:31 p.m. and was taken in for questioning while the search was still being carried out at the crime scene.
I'm Detective Strine with the Independence Police. This is Detective Young with Ellesmere. Okay. I don't know anything, man. I was at home, just kind of hanging out. Apparently, we got a call to your home to be looked up. What's going on? You shot your girlfriend? Okay.
So, real quick, who lives there?
I believe yours.
Whose name's on the lease?
Mine.
Your name's on the lease? Okay.
So, real quick, man. Do you mind if we search your residence?
The interrogation began with Detective Strine asking Tommy to give written consent to allow them to continue searching his home. Tommy was then asked further questions by the detectives, but a few minutes into answering them, he became sick and threw up.
Like a stomach bug, Tommy, or do you got the flu? What's going on, buddy? Talk to me. COVID? Okay.
Oh, so you haven't been to the doctor?
Tommy wasn't sure why he suddenly got sick, so he made a guess. However, the detectives were unfazed and tried to push forward with the interrogation and the signing of the written search consent document.
Walk me through the process of how this kind of went through. And before we kind of begin with that, we have officers that are at your house right now, okay? Obviously, we need to be able to kind of process that scene effectively, and what'll make that scene processing a little bit easier is if you take one of this consent to search form and allow us access to search your home. Is that okay? Okay. So I'm gonna walk this through with you real quick, okay? So how it works is that you're gonna sign your name.
Despite their best efforts, Tommy was unable to continue with the interrogation, and paramedics were eventually called to the scene to check on him.
Where you are right now? Independence what?
Cheers.
Okay. Do you want to go to the hospital so they can see what's going on with you?
Please. I don't want Philip. Yeah, I want.
After running some tests, the paramedics concluded that Tommy needed to go to the hospital. The detectives didn't let him leave that easily, as there were a few things they needed to clarify regarding Tommy's activities and his timeline after the murder. They also needed to take some images of him before he left the station.
Have you tried to communicate with anybody since Sunday, by any chance? No? Not like family members, any other friends, her friends perhaps? You haven't tried to talk to them at all? Okay. Everybody stand up, I'm gonna take some pictures of you real quick against this wall. Real quick, we're gonna try to be as quick as we can, okay? Do me a favor, stand up, stand straight up this way, kind of look at me. Please don't kick that over, goodness. I have a mess and these ladies would kill me. Stand up against that wall for me.
Once his pictures were taken, Tommy was escorted to the hospital. They left the station around 5:05 p.m., and it was a 26-minute drive before they arrived at the hospital.
What gets you inside here, Tommy?
Check your temperature.
I wore a suit down here. Thank you. If I get that uniform, I'll shave it. I'm the cheap one out.
Hey buddy, I'm Dr. Patel. Can you tell me a little bit about what happened to bring you here? Or do you want them to step out a little bit?
We can't leave him. He's in our custody.
Okay. Okay.
He's been pretty forth. He's told us everything that we need to know and everything's going on with him. He's been a good man, yeah.
And so what brings you here, though?
After more comprehensive tests, the doctors diagnosed Tommy with dehydration, so he had to be hospitalized for a while before being sent to the Kenton County Detention Center. With Tommy under supervised watch in the hospital, most of the officers returned to the Somerset Pond neighborhood to carry out a more thorough investigation in the hope of understanding why Tommy suddenly killed Amberly, as they weren't buying the story he told them about losing it. Additionally, they wanted the investigation to shed more light on the events that transpired before Amberly's gruesome murder. The Independence detectives decided to start their investigation with Tommy and Amberly's neighbors. After being questioned by the police, the couple's neighbors were interviewed by the press, who had heard about the murder and were also on the scene. The first neighbor to be interviewed was a man named Mike Rottenberger, a maintenance manager who lived and worked in the apartment complex. Mike knew Tommy pretty well, as they'd worked together on certain jobs where Tommy offered to help. Due to their close relationship, the press asked for Mike's thoughts on the entire incident.
I mean, he was always a great guy. I mean, just funny, outgoing, likes to talk, lonely, decent guy.
When you heard he's been arrested,
It threw me for a loop.
Room with this body for more than a day, that sounds a little unusual.
That creeps me out a little bit. Now I'm starting to doubt some of the things that I know about some people out here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all quiet, but, you know, I trust in people like I trusted him, and now finding this out, it's...
After Mike Rottenberger, the next neighbor the press spoke to was a woman named Elisa Durham.
I actually know them, but I know that we heard like banging over the past like weekend over there, but other than that, we didn't even know that it had happened. And our walls are pretty thin, so if it was like loud arguing, we would have heard it. But we didn't hear any arguing, but there was like loud noises, like I said.
While she didn't know the couple, she'd apparently heard some strange noises coming from the couple's home that night. Elisa had already given her statements to the detectives, and she later repeated those statements to the press. The detectives spoke to two additional neighbors that night, Dustin Maines and Tammy Borchardt. These two lived much closer to the couple, and they'd heard them fight on numerous occasions. Ms. Borchardt went on to provide additional details while giving her statements to the detectives, mentioning some strange phrases Tommy had made while they were having a conversation. Tommy had told Ms. Borchardt that he had done a bad thing and he might get in trouble for it. At the end of their odd conversation, Tommy also said he didn't know what to do about it, and Ms. Borchardt told the detectives he never mentioned what the thing he had done was. Both Mr. Maines and Ms. Borchardt provided summarized versions of their statements to the press the next morning.
They did fight, and I didn't even know she was back, to be honest with you. And then you'll find the clothes piled up outside the door and everything, and they can be loud and things.
After talking to Mr. Maines and Ms. Borchardt, the press went around the neighborhood that same morning, talking to the neighbors the detectives had already interviewed.
2, 3 o'clock in the morning, you'd hear them stomping around or hitting that wall, and so it was almost a nightly ritual.
They spoke to Leanna Rottenberger, the property manager's daughter. Leanna's apartment was directly across from the couple's, and she was shocked to hear the news, as there'd never been a murder in their neighborhood before.
I mean, we've had people pass away from old age and overdoses, but we've never had like a murder happen around here, so it's really surprising.
One of the last people the detectives and the press interviewed was a woman who didn't know Tommy, but had seen him around helping in the neighborhood.
Absolutely seemed like a great guy. I've seen him help the maintenance man a couple times. I mean, very helpful person. Never could imagine But he did.
The Independence detectives made sure to talk to every resident in the Somerset Pond neighborhood after the autopsy results revealed that Amberly was actually murdered on the previous Sunday evening. While their statements confirmed the couple often quarreled, there was nothing that explained why Tommy chose to kill her that Sunday evening. The detectives asked themselves what made that morning different as they struggled to figure out why Tommy went as far as shooting Amberly in the face with a 20-gauge shotgun. That's when they received a call from Eagle Financial Services, a financial services agency that operates several locations in northern Kentucky. They told the detectives that an accidental death and dismemberment insurance policy worth $20,000 was taken out in Amberly Harris's name in November. Unsurprisingly, the only beneficiary listed on the policy was Tommy Joe Powell. The statements from Eagle Financial Services, in addition to the insurance policy document they provided, served as both a motive and incriminating evidence against Tommy. The detectives managed to piece together the events leading up to Amberly's death. They believed that after Tommy had taken out the insurance policy against Amberly, he looked for a way to pick a fight that Sunday evening, as he always did. Tommy had been drinking on the day of the murder and had picked a fight with Amberly, telling her not to touch the TV while the pair were in their bedroom. This led to a heated argument because Tommy knew how to infuriate Amberly. A couple of minutes into the argument, he shot her in the face. He'd planned it all out on how he'd take the insurance money and flee, but what Tommy didn't expect was the shock he'd experience after killing Amberly. Even when he got over it, he didn't know how to proceed from there, as he had no idea what to do with her body or how to claim the insurance money without a feasible explanation. This led him to wander aimlessly for days in the same house with Amberly's body before the Independence police knocked on the door. After piecing the events of the night together, the detectives carried out a final investigation into Tommy Joe Powell. Tommy Joe Powell was born on the 1st of September 1968. He served in the Navy during his early 20s, and after his years in service, Tommy suffered from mental health issues and addiction. He also had a prolific criminal record, with charges ranging from drug possession to drug paraphernalia and 2 domestic violence charges, the latter of which was filed by Amberly. The detectives didn't need to look too deep into Tommy, as they already knew what the outcome of the trial would be. Tommy Joe Powell was arrested on the 15th of December 2022 after the complications he had with dehydration had been solved. He was booked into the Kenton County Detention Center and subsequently charged with murder domestic violence, a capital offense in Kentucky that carries a possible punishment of 20 to 50 years or life in prison if convicted. Tommy was held on a $1 million bond while he awaited trial. Due to Tommy's immediate confession, the trial was very simple. Kenton County Commonwealth Attorney Rob Sanders and Assistant Commonwealth's Attorney Taylor Roof were the prosecutors on the case. Attorney Roof made a statement during the trial, saying, "Tommy Joe Powell is a stereotypical example of why domestic violence is a deadly epidemic. His crimes escalated from assault to strangulation and then murder." Tommy, who wasn't fighting for his innocence, asked the presiding judge, Patricia Sum, for leniency through his attorney, begging her to consider his service in the Navy and his history of mental health issues and addiction. Tommy also penned an apology to the Harris family for killing Amberly. The letter was given to Tommy's attorney during the trial, and she read it aloud, saying, "I wanted all of you to know how deeply sorry I am from the bottom of my heart and soul for what happened that night. My actions caused a very special lady to be taken from us." Amberly's sister and the entire family were present during the trial, and they rejected Tommy's apology. Jessica had told the press that the family couldn't even see Amberly because of the damage Tommy did to her, and her pain only increased when she thought of Amberly's 3 children who were staying with their fathers in North Carolina. Both the prosecutors and the Harris family urged the judge for a life sentence, citing the disturbing crime scene photos and the life insurance policy Tommy bought. The trial came to a close on the 18th of September 2023 in Kenton County Circuit Court, and Tommy Joe Powell was sentenced to life imprisonment. Despite the life sentence being handed down, Amberly's sister Jessica said nothing's really changed for her. she made an emotional statement to the press after the trial, saying,
He gets to be there. He gets to breathe. He gets to be alive. He gets to eat. He gets to sleep. He gets to... I have an urn of ashes at my house with my sister in it.
Attorney Sanders still hopes the sentence will eventually bring closure to the Harris family and send a message to future abusers. He gave a statement to the press saying he'll be approaching 80 years old before he's even eligible for parole, and will be there to oppose his parole, whether it's me or someone else who takes my place 20 years down the road. Assistant Attorney Roof echoed similar statements in a press release, saying Tommy Powell shot Amberly in the head with a shotgun at close range, killing her in a scene so gruesome it looked like something out of a horror movie.
Changes in our own policies. I don't know that any of those changes necessarily would have saved Ms. Harris's life, but I know that I'm not going to take a chance on anything like this happening again.
The life sentence was the closest thing to justice for Harris's family, who drove from several states away to attend the final sentencing. Let this be a warning to perpetrators of domestic violence everywhere. If you kill your victim, you'll go to prison forever, just like Tommy Joe Powell. Amberly's tragic case inspired change in the Kenton County Department. Most of the officers who'd worked on the case felt Amberly might still be alive today if they'd put a little more effort into convincing her to testify against Tommy when she filed the initial domestic violence charge. The department then promised officers would make an effort to see victims in person instead of calling them. Attorney Sanders spoke to the press on the matter, saying, "I'm not sure those changes in policies would have saved Ms. Harris's life, but I know I'm not going to take a chance on anything like this happening again." 2 monuments were built outside the couple's apartment in memory of Amberly, and the messages read, "May you find comfort in the arms of an angel," and "It's all part of the Master's plan, a step on the road to home." A celebration of life was held for Amberly Harris on the 23rd of December 2022 at the Chapel of Caven Cook Funeral Home in North Carolina. She leaves behind her mother and stepfather, Tammy and Gerald Horn, her grandmother Elizabeth Harris, her brother Brandon Harris, her sisters Jessica Mann and Alyssa Harris, her 3 children Jojo, Hunter, and Michaela, as well as many aunts, uncles, nieces, and cousins. She was very loved by all. In the opening moments of our story, we step into the heartwarming world of Shanti Cooper Trones and Dave Trones. Their smiles radiated the joy of newlyweds, basking in the warm glow of their love. It was a time when dreams danced in their eyes, and the future held the promise of endless tomorrows. A snapshot of a life filled with dreams and laughter. In 2015, Dave Trones discovered his dream home, a charming house adorned with a fascinating gargoyle, located in the upscale neighborhood of Delaney Park in Orlando.
The house was beautiful. It was 4,000 square feet. It had a pool, a garage apartment.
They sought to infuse a modern aesthetic into the interior, as the house originally boasted an older Victorian style. It didn't take long for Dave and his new wife, Shanti Cooper, to embark on their own remodeling journey.
Dave just called me on the phone and asked if I'd come by and take a look at the project. He said that they had done some work.
A local contractor says, "I wasn't at all prepared for what I saw when I got there."
They had fully disassembled this house to a degree that I'd never seen before. It was rather astonishing. It was largely wide open, like you're inside of a giant shoebox.
This house became more than just a project to David Trones. It was his life. He obsessed on it.
But as we dig deeper into their story, we discover a different side.
This house is the center point to the story and ultimately led to Shanti's demise.
Former prosecutor Ryan Vescio says the story began in the late afternoon of April 24, 2018. Dave placed an emergency call to 911.
Hello?
And David says that he came home and found Shanti floating in the bathtub.
She's not breathing.
The question arises, does that story make sense?
Absolutely not. Shanti was extensively beaten.
It makes me emotional. I feel bad for her family and for her son. It's upsetting that she won't get that life with him.
Upon the arrival of first responders, tragedy struck as Shanti Cooper's life came to a tragic end at the tender age of 39. It became abundantly clear that, right from the outset, Dave Trones was a person of interest in this somber tale.
Absolutely. Dave was asked to go to the station and voluntarily remain there for hours. And he just started getting confronted and confronted and confronted.
He did not request counsel. He consented to swabs, to clippings, to a search of his person.
Dave went into that interview with an agenda.
Think about where you want to be in the future. You still have a future. Now's your opportunity to make it the best it can be.
Do you want to elaborate on that? What do you mean? What do you mean is future?
You still have a future. You still have a life to live. You're still breathing. You're a young man. You still have the rest of your life to live. I can't tell you what's going to happen to you. I don't know because you're not telling the truth. I can tell you that she's a lead detective in this. And if you maintain this BS, she has one choice to go with. I told you she was murdered.
And it became a war of wills in that room.
I don't have any explanation for the severity of her injuries.
It seems Dave was not broken. And didn't Dave win that war of wills?
Well, Dave didn't confess.
Seems pretty clear. These two detectives, they went into this room, decided that David was a murderer, and then went the extra mile to try to put a file together to prove such.
Did you guys get into an argument? Was she about the house?
The question arises again. Is it possible that without this house, Shanti might still be alive?
I think that's completely true.
This is the most chilling case you've ever heard. But before we go further, let me take you back to the beginning. Shanti Cooper, a successful businesswoman born in 1979, had a son named Jackson Cooper from her first marriage with James Cooper. While not much is known about their marriage, things took a sour turn due to James's violent nature, leading to their divorce in 2013. Determined to create a better life, Shanti packed up her things and moved with Jackson to the vibrant city of Orlando. There, she continued working from the comfort of her own home, pouring her heart and soul into being the best single mother she could be. While Shanti showered Jackson with love and happiness, deep down, she longed for a life partner who could share her journey and provide the fatherly love her son deserved. In March 2013, in the pursuit of love, Shanti took a leap of faith and joined Match.com, a dating site where destiny awaited her with open arms. There, Shanti crossed paths with a man named Dave Trones from the distant land of Minnesota. Like Shanti, he was recovering from the aftermath of a divorce from his ex-wife Carol, whom he'd married in 1999. He too yearned for a life partner to share his joys and sorrows. Despite being separated by miles, their connection blossomed through heartfelt letters and late-night phone calls. Surprisingly, in a short span of time, they grew incredibly close and decided to embark on a new relationship together. After just 5 months, in September 2013, Dave made a bold move and relocated from Minnesota to Orlando to be with Shanti and her son. It was a beautiful time for Shanti, as she found happiness and companionship in Dave's presence, filling her heart with joy. However, in April 2015, a significant change came into their lives when Dave decided to purchase a stunning 4,000 square foot house in Delaney Park. This neighborhood was known for its elegance and was conveniently located just a mile away from downtown Orlando. Dave bought the house outright, using his own money that he'd accumulated through his past successes in business and real estate. They both instantly fell in love with the neighborhood and the house itself. However, they wanted to give the interior a much more modern touch, since the house had an older Victorian style. Together, they agreed that Shanti would take charge of funding the renovations to transform the house into their dream home, since Dave bought the house with his own money. It was an exciting project that they embarked on as a team, bringing their unique ideas and vision to life. But here's where things took an unexpected turn in their story. The renovation project wasn't just about sprucing up the house. there was something more to it. As time went on, their lives started to become more complicated. Despite the challenges, they decided to tie the knot and got married on February 22, 2017. However, after the wedding, the renovation project spiraled out of control. They completely stripped down the interior of the house, and Shanti had already paid a whopping $250,000. The end seemed nowhere in sight, and the house had turned into a chaotic construction zone. It became unbearable to live in, so they had to temporarily move into a small apartment above the garage, leaving the main house behind. It was a frustrating and challenging time for Shanti, and their once happy family life was now disrupted. That's when everything changed dramatically on April 24, 2018, at around 4 p.m. It was during this moment that Dave made a fateful call to 911, setting the stage for a whole new chapter in our story.
Hello?
And David says that he came home and found Shanti floating in the bathtub.
She's not breathing.
We've explored her life, delved into her past, and now we're about to enter the crime scene. After the 911 call, the police arrived at East Copeland Drive in about 20 minutes and met 47-year-old Dave Trons, the person who made the call. When he saw the police, he couldn't hold back his tears and started crying. The police found the lifeless body of 39-year-old Shanti Cooper in the living room, but the reasons behind her death remained mysterious. As they delved deeper into the investigation, they uncovered unsettling evidence, marks on her neck that raised suspicion, and traces of blood scattered throughout the house. Among the evidence, what caught their attention was the unusual behavior of Dave during their conversations with him. He seemed to switch between different emotions when discussing his wife's death, which raised suspicions. However, these were only initial observations, and the police needed more information to understand what had happened. They asked Dave to come to the police station for questioning, reassuring him that it was just a routine part of the investigation. The police hoped this would help them gather more clarity about the situation. At this time, Dave had the option to say no because he was not being arrested. However, he willingly decided to go to the Orlando Police Department for questioning. After knowing the crime scene, get ready to be captivated as we dive into the chilling interrogation. Stay tuned and watch closely. It's about to get intense. The detectives would start their investigation by gathering and analyzing all the evidence found at the house and by talking to Dave. Their initial priority was to build a rapport with Dave, which meant creating a connection and making him feel supported. The purpose was to ensure that Dave felt comfortable and didn't choose to exercise his right to remain silent or his right to ask for a lawyer. Establishing this connection is crucial in any interrogation because it encourages the suspect to share all information willingly.
Sorry, I'm Detective Sprague. Can I get your first name?
First name is David.
David? Okay. We're gonna grab another chair.
Okay.
Did you need something?
I was just asking for a bottle of water.
Okay, we can grab you. Have you been to the restroom?
I just want.
You just want? Okay, how about anything else? Anything else?
Been starving, a cracker, or just something.
You would
just
need
some
both.
salt, right? Just something simple. Just because I have saltines or peanut butter crackers.
Anything like that? Okay,
Yeah.
that's not a problem. We'll be right back.
Okay.
And is there anything else we can get you? Okay, all right. Okay, okay, is that good? Okay, all right. I'm with you. I haven't eaten since this morning. I'm sorry this is taking so long. You are David, I believe? Okay, all right. I'm Detective Teresa Sprague, and this is Detective Barb McClelland. First of all, on behalf of the Orlando Police Department, we want to say how sorry we are for your loss, David, and also for everything that you're going through. I know this is very traumatic for you. Okay.
This emotional outburst seemed odd when considering the timeline. Such a reaction could be genuine, but it occurred about 5 hours after the 911 call, making it less typical for an innocent person to accept the situation outright. Normally, they might show signs of denial or confusion. Moreover, Dave's reaction appeared prompted by the detective's statement, which didn't make sense since he already knew what had happened hours ago. This raised doubts about the authenticity of his concerns, and it almost felt like a fake display of emotions, not typical of genuine human reactions. It's essential to understand that unusual body language or reactions don't necessarily mean guilt. They require careful analysis. We'll analyze the situation, but we won't jump to conclusions without solid evidence, as the real reason behind the unusual behavior may be revealed later in the video.
And it's just a terrible, terrible thing. So, what time is it? You know, it is 21:15. 15. Okay. All right. And I know you've been waiting a long time. We've just obviously had a lot to do. Just try and figure out what's going on here, okay? And we need your help doing that, okay? All right. Can we just, and if you need to take a break, you tell me, okay? If you need anything at all, you let me know, okay? Okay. We appreciate your patience. I know you've been in this suit, and I can get you some clothes as well. You understand why we needed to do what we needed to do.
Of course, I do. And we want to.
My understanding is that you've been very cooperative, so we just need to, obviously we need you, or we got to figure this out together, okay?
Of course.
What is your first name? Is your first name David?
It's David M. for Michael. Tronnes. Tronnes.
Tronnes, okay. And what is your date of birth?
6/29/68.
Okay. How tall are you, David?
6'2".
Okay, and how much do you weigh?
195.
Okay, blonde or brown hair?
Little of both.
Little of both. Okay. Okay. Hazel eyes, maybe?
I'll take hazel.
Blue, hazel. Okay.
They're dirty blue. Yeah.
Okay.
Just 90 seconds ago, Dave was deeply distressed and crying uncontrollably over his wife's death. Now, he was suddenly chuckling and engaging in friendly banter with the detective, even sharing a genuine smile as he talked about his eye color. This quick shift in emotions is not typical of a traumatized suspect, as it's unusual for someone who just experienced a tragic loss to display such contrasting behavior. In the next 60 seconds, you'll witness the emotional switches that were mentioned earlier. Dave went from being calm to suddenly appearing deeply distraught, and then back to being calm again, all within a short span of time. These abrupt changes in emotions suggest that he might be trying to force an emotional reaction that didn't come naturally. In contrast, genuine emotions are less likely to show such drastic shifts. With the addition of visual cues from the video, we now have more information to make a better judgment about Dave's true feelings during the interrogation.
In 2013.
Okay.
About 5 months after I mentioned to you.
Did you meet her here or there?
No, online.
You met online? Okay. I'm sorry. Take your time. I'm so sorry. Can you tell me what year that was?
It was 2013.
2013 is when you met online?
Yeah.
Okay. And about 5 months later, did you move here and move in with her, or just move here?
I'm trying to be as accurate as possible. I believe it was the end of September. My mom moved down.
So you guys knew each other approximately 5 years this month. I know this is tough. Take a minute, okay? I know this is super tough.
It's doing so good. She's doing so good. It was such a good weekend. I've never been more in love. I was so happy.
Okay.
At this moment, the detective felt assured about the rapport she'd established with Dave, whether his emotional outburst was genuine or not. It was the right time to move the conversation towards getting him to talk more openly. She proceeded to read him his rights before continuing with the interrogation.
Obviously, we don't know what happened in your home today, okay? We don't know what happened to Shanti yet. We know you called us, which is good, okay? And we know that obviously she's lost her life, okay? So we do need to, you're not under arrest, okay? I want you to understand that, okay? But we do need to read you your rights because you are in a police department with 2 detectives in this room and you've been here for quite some time, okay? And I want you to understand that. We're just trying to figure out what happened to her, okay? And so it's our job to do that, obviously, and we want to give you answers, her son answers. I mean, her family deserves that. Would you agree? Okay. Okay. So if you don't, I know you've probably never been through anything like this in your life, okay? And I'm going to help you get through it. So if you have questions, you want to stop me, please do so, okay? But I do need you to understand your rights before we ask you about anything that happened in that home today. You have the right to remain silent. Do you understand that? I'm sorry?
Yes. Sorry. Yes.
Okay. Anything you say may be used against you in court. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You have a right to talk to a lawyer before and during questioning. Do you understand that?
Yes.
In this clip, you listen to Dave agreeing to talk after being read his rights. The most challenging part of the interrogation was over. The focus now was to let Dave speak as freely as possible. Any inconsistencies in his narrative would be carefully examined, along with any evidence found at the house or on Shanti's body, to piece together the truth of what had happened. In the next clip, you'll hear about the renovation project of the new house and how significant it was for Dave. But it turned out that Shanti struggled with it, and their marriage wasn't as idyllic as it appeared on the surface.
I bought the house with cash that I had. We don't have a note. And I've used mostly my cash that I had saved from a career at 3M before I came here. A pretty successful long career, and I did well in real estate as well. So I came down here with about 800 or 900,000. And we bought the house for cash.
Well, how much did the house cost?
$608.
So that you guys own the house free and clear. Is your name only on it, or was it both of yours?
When we bought the house, we weren't married. And so we put it in a trust, and we just completed the trust paperwork end of last year, beginning of this year, to put her name on the trust and slowly kind of migrate my mom, she's 82, off of it for financial reasons and estate planning reasons. It just made more sense.
Your mom's name was on the trust?
Correct.
Okay. And what was the reason for that? Was it you and your mom, or just your mom?
The reason was if anything would happen, we put her trailer in the trust as well. So it was a property trust for our family. Mm-hmm. And I'm an only child. Mm-hmm. And my father has been part of my life. So we've always done everything like that together. I've always taken care of her.
Okay. She lives here?
She does.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the same area or complex that Shanti's grandmother lives in?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's called Gulfstream Harbor.
Gulfstream Harbor?
Hoffner and Old Goldenrod.
Okay. So you started to put Shanti's name on the home at the end of last year, beginning of this year. Was that process completed or no?
We got the trust documentation back from LegalZoom. We do all of our legal documents ourselves. And the only thing left to do was to notarize it. We weren't sure because she's also an only child, and Jackson is an only child. And we didn't know who to put if something happened to both of us. So we had kind of talked about it and debated it, and we finally just said it doesn't really matter. Let's just move forward. That's the most important thing. And then
even after this, Shanti agreed to pay for the renovations, thinking that her contribution would make her an equal partner in the house ownership. However, her name was never added to the trust, meaning that if they were to separate, Shanti wouldn't be entitled to anything, despite investing a lot of money in the renovations. In Florida, properties are divided equally in a divorce if they're considered marital property acquired during the marriage. But since the house was bought and put into a trust before they got married, it was considered non-marital property and wouldn't be divided equally in a divorce. It could be a coincidence that things happen this way, or it could raise questions about Dave's long-term plans for Shanti and the fairness of the property situation in their relationship.
Paid for, we have the money for the renovation in savings ready to go. We did a calculation on Saturday, I think it was, what we've always wanted.
Dream come true. Yeah.
So there's no way we could ever. She has really severe sleep apnea. One of the other things with the appendectomy and the nausea and all the stuff that has come after the surgery is her sleep. Many times her sleeping has been difficult.
When you say she has sleep apnea, does she stop breathing? Does she snore? Does she have a CPAP? What do you?
All of the above. She has a CPAP, but she doesn't use it because she can't sleep with it. It keeps her awake. So she sleeps without it. But she snores a lot and she wakes up frequently.
So where would you sleep?
I sleep downstairs.
In the video clip, Dave mentioned that he slept downstairs to give Shanti and her son privacy when he came over, but also because Shanti snored. When Dave said he slept downstairs, he was actually referring to the garage, which seemed like an unusual choice unless there were other issues at play. The detective found this strange because the couple was renovating their house and the current living space was small, yet they didn't sleep together. This raised suspicion for the detective that there might have been pre-existing problems between Shanti and Dave before her death. In the next clip, the detective asked Dave about his recollection of the day he found Shanti dead.
On the couch? Is that what your recollection is? Okay. What time did you get up?
I woke up before 7.
All right. So you leave approximately 11:45. Take the dogs in the white Toyota RAV4 to the Park of Americas on Andes. So far? Okay. Do you holler up, text her, tell her you're leaving? Any communication?
I didn't.
You didn't? So you're assuming she's home because the car's there, and you had already mentioned you were going to do this, so you did not communicate about that you were leaving.
No, she knew.
She knew. So in your mind, she's there. No? When was the last time you had telephone, text, on a Facebook, any sort of communication via phone with Shanti?
The day before when she told me Jim was coming early to get Jackson. Now I'm concerned that she wasn't okay when I left.
Now you're concerned she wasn't okay when you left?
Talking about it's hard because you're asking me if we communicated, and we were pretty efficient in the morning. She tells me, what she's got planned for the day. I tell her what I have planned. We work on it. We do our little morning strategy session, and then it's who's going to pick up Jackson at what time. So we race through our day to some degree to make sure that we get everything done. And I wish I would have taken the time to check on her.
Okay.
What?
Okay. So you think you made it to the park before noon or after?
Just shortly after.
Is anyone with you? Just the dogs? Okay. Do you see anyone at the park that you know?
I don't. Okay. There were only a couple cars in the parking lot. I have 2 dogs, so I typically...
Dave stated that he had no contact with Shanti throughout the day, which seems strange considering they lived together. He mentioned that he simply woke up and didn't feel the need to check on his wife before going out with the dogs. The detective found this story puzzling, as nothing seemed to add up. In the next clip, you'll notice that Dave went into excessive detail about irrelevant topics. This is a common tactic used by manipulators to overwhelm the listener with so much information that it becomes challenging to distinguish between facts and fiction. Such behavior can raise doubts about the truthfulness of the information provided.
Forest, it's pretty gnarly, but there's a lot of unstable dogs, and there's almost always fights. Then there's a small dog area next to that. I tend to work the dogs there if there's nobody around, and a lot of times that's another reason for going that time of day, is there's usually very few people there. But there's a big field off of that between a little reservoir. I don't think it's a lake. It's just a little reservoir with a walkway around it. And there's a big field between the playground, the lake, and the small dog park. And that's where I bring Charlie and Dawn.
Okay. And so you kind of let them run, do their thing, enjoy the park. How long do you think you were there?
We worked them pretty hard. I think it was an hour and 45 minutes, because I don't think I got home until 2.
Did you have communication on your phone with anyone in that hour, 45 minutes?
No.
Did you text anyone, call anyone? Were you on Facebook, commenting, liking, posting?
I don't do that.
You don't do that? Okay. So you don't think was your phone with you?
I take a blue, I have a little blue cooler bag, and I could just throw the phone in there, but I didn't text or call anybody.
I missed that. You said you have a blue cooler bag?
When I go, I take all my personal belongings and I put them in there. So I put the water bottle in there, I put the keys in there when I'm out in the park with the dogs.
Gotcha.
And my phone, and I usually bring a treat for the dogs.
Okay.
Reward treats for the dog.
If a suspect is intentionally trying to show a specific emotion, like grief, it becomes difficult for them to shift their focus while maintaining that emotion. Pretending to feel a certain way takes a lot of mental effort, making it hard to switch attention to other things and keep up the act. For instance, if someone is pretending to be sad, they might struggle to show that emotion while explaining complex details. On the other hand, if a person is genuinely distraught, their emotions will likely remain constant, regardless of how much they need to focus on other things. Genuine emotions don't require conscious effort, making them more stable and reliable indicators of a person's feelings. During the interrogation, the detective asked an open-ended question about Dave coming back to the house. If Dave was innocent, he would probably focus on his wife Shanti, as coming home to find a deceased loved one is highly traumatic. However, instead of discussing Shanti, Dave provided excessive details about irrelevant things like plants and upcoming construction projects. This diversion tactic suggests that he wanted to shift the attention away from Shanti. Notice the time it took for Dave to finally mention Shanti.
I feed them. And Sunday I had moved a couple of plants, and I went out to check on them because it rained really, really hard last night. The bougainvillea in the driveway was, when it rains heavy like that, it sags down so you can't drive in. So I took the pool brush on the end of a pole and I push it back to get it back up and in there, kind of locked in. We have construction starting in a couple of weeks, so I'm cleaning the courtyard in front of the greenhouse. I cleaned up some of the bougainvillea that I trimmed, put them in a wastebasket. I flipped the pool pump on. I cleaned the pool out again, fully bleached and scrubbed it.
So you cleaned the pool twice and you fed the dogs twice? You fed him in the morning and you fed him again when you got home.
Mm-hmm.
And you cleaned the pool when you woke up and you cleaned it again when you got home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else?
As I said, I worked in the yard. I worked in the driveway, which is what we call the courtyard.
Anybody come by?
No.
Mailman, delivery folks, friends, neighbors? No? No one came over?
No.
Okay. So you're out in front by that dumpster? Is that the courtyard?
Yeah, but where we park back in front of the garage door.
That's the courtyard.
Where the greenhouse and that
And
area.
when you say you were cleaning the courtyard, what are your call doing?
There was a bunch of wood that some 2x4s that had been sitting out there, and some pieces of plywood that I had moved when it started raining.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a bunch of leaves that had fallen from the trees behind, not from ours, but from the other side of the wall. Basically our neighbor back then. So I had swept that up. I had done some of that on Sunday, and I did probably another 20 or 30 minutes of that around the greenhouse, in front of the vehicles, back by the pallets. We were going to move the greenhouse so we could put a lumber pile in for framing back there, and I was trying to figure out where I was going to move everything.
Okay. So you think you worked in the yard until how many minutes do you believe that was, or hours?
I would say less than an hour, but close, or more than 45 minutes to an hour, somewhere in there.
So you're closer to 3-ish?
I think it's after 3.
Okay. And then what do you do?
That's all that I can remember until I went upstairs to see when we were going to pick up. So.
Okay. When you enter the garage apartment?
So, I could hear the water is running, but it's not running. It's not like the sound of a shower running. It's just, it's trickling out of the spout, which is weird because, the only time that she does that is if she's going to take a shower. She would do that to heat the water heaters affixed to the outside of the main house. So it's a long run to get up to that bathroom. So I listen because if she's on the phone with a work call, I don't announce myself. I just walk upstairs. I didn't hear her. And I could hear the water. I couldn't hear her. I knew something was wrong. And that's when we went into the bathroom and that's when I saw her.
Because you heard the water and didn't hear her, you felt something was wrong?
I went upstairs. I don't hear her talking on the phone, so I say hello. I don't hear anything back. I can hear water running. She's not saying anything. Doesn't seem right. Sometimes it is hard if you have the water running to hear somebody out there, so that was my assumption.
Okay, so it's one room. You don't see her?
Until I get to the bathroom.
Okay. Is the bathroom door open or closed?
Open.
Open? Okay, and so you walk toward the water that you're hearing?
Yeah, I walk into the bathroom.
Okay. The door's open, and what happens? What do you see?
I see her laying with her head in the right-hand corner. The water is running, but I don't think the drain is closed, because if it was, it would be going over, right? So the water's like half full, she's submerged.
In this clip, Dave sought approval for his version of events, as if it wasn't a straightforward matter. A truthful suspect would typically state their version of events without seeking approval. Dave recalled the events as if he was asking a question, which is a sign of possible deception.
But she's also partially not submerged, and one of her legs is kind of sticking up and out a little bit. And it's just extremely awful, and it doesn't look natural. Obviously, she fell or something happened. She's stiff. It's hard.
She's stiff?
It's hard to pick her up. She's not. It's like a sack of potatoes, you know, it's not easy. She's not moving with me. I grabbed her arms and kind of pulled her this way. And over, I think partially onto her wrist. I thought that I still think that there's something I can do to help. And I'm kind of moving her, trying to get her, to shake her a little bit and trying to get the water out of her lungs. I got her in front of the couch and I had to stop and put her down. And I tried to lift her head up to kind of clear, I guess it's the thing you do if you're going to do CPR or something. And she's not responding. She has blood coming down her face and on the side of the body. And I'm still thinking I think her head and she has long hair, are on it. And it looks like it's in the middle to me. There's a couple of settings. There's fully closed.
Okay. So her hair is definitely wet, right?
Yeah.
Her clothing, her tank, and her shorts are wet. And she's face down. So the first thing you do is what, if you recall?
I reached out and grabbed her. I reached out and touched her right arm.
Do you recall where? How much time do you think elapsed with everything you attempted to do?
I've been thinking about that. It probably seems that long.
In this clip, things begin to unravel and become clearer. Dave claimed that when he returned home, he found Shanti deceased in the bathroom. He moved her to the living room, and within 5 or 6 minutes, he called 911. However, when the police arrived at the house about 20 minutes later, they noticed something odd. According to Dave's description, there should have been water everywhere, and Shanti's body should have been wet. But in reality, the entire house was dry, and there wasn't a single drop of water, not even on Shanti. This indicated that Shanti's body had been out for a long time, and the house had been meticulously cleaned.
Struck you? Threw anything at you?
No.
No. Have you ever harmed her physically?
No.
Choked her?
No.
Strangled her?
No.
No. Have you ever strangled her or choked her during sex just for heightened orgasm? Some couples do that.
Absolutely not. No.
Absolutely not. Okay. Was there ever anything around her neck that you noticed during you were moving her from the tub or attempting CPR? Was there anything around her neck at all?
No.
Okay.
No necklace, no.
Nothing. Okay. Did you ever, if in your assessment of her or attempt to help, have your hand on her neck at all?
Sure. Underneath, behind her.
Behind her head?
Like that.
To do the head tilt chin lift?
Sure. And then also to feel for the pulse of the pigeon.
Okay. Did you ever have your hand on her neck where you would have had to have squeezed it for any reason?
Possibly when we were.
In this footage, the detective mentioned strangulation to see how Dave would respond. The detective had access to the autopsy reports, which revealed that Shanti's cause of death was due to blunt force trauma to the head and strangulation. She didn't drown. In fact, she'd been dead for hours before the investigators arrived. They found that one of Shanti's earrings was missing, and there was blood in the room. Additionally, there were no defensive marks on her body, leading the detectives to believe that she'd been preparing for bed the previous night when she was attacked and strangled to death. To make it appear as an accident, her body was left in the bathtub filled with water. What stood out in Dave's body language was his lack of resistance to these questions. On the same day he discovered his wife dead, an innocent suspect would likely not tolerate being subjected to such questioning. They would probably be furious at the audacity of the detective to ask such questions at such a sensitive time.
First of all, you're not really sharing the same residence. You're kind of living downstairs. She's living upstairs with her son. But her son's not there. So even when her son's not there, you're still not sleeping together. You're not in the same residence. So
during the day,
spending a lot of time. And I think whatever happened to her happened before you went to the park. Okay. Do you know how long it takes someone to get stiff? And I think you've left some stuff out. It is maybe something got out of hand. Maybe you didn't mean for it to happen. And when you came back and found her, it's pretty evident that she was deceased.
Yeah.
Cold, stiff.
Yeah.
Significant swelling.
Yeah.
And a lot of bloating.
Agreed.
Okay? So whatever happened between 7 and 9:30 to 9:45 is where I need you to be significantly more honest. Now, if there's an explanation, I want to hear it.
I told you everything.
Yeah, but you've left out something, David, because this woman has significant injuries. Okay, this is not in any way.
Absolutely not.
Did you choke her?
Absolutely not.
Did you strangle her?
Without question, no.
Did you beat her?
No.
Did you hit her with anything?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Do you have injuries?
I do not.
Anywhere? Did they photograph you, I assume?
They did.
Okay. Do you know if they photographed your chest or with or without clothes? How do I pronounce your last name, David?
From mother's day.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's a promise.
Promise?
P-R-O-N.
At this point, the detective was certain that Dave was hiding something crucial, and it was time for a final confrontation. They left Dave alone for about 2 hours to increase the pressure after the initial confrontation. When the detectives returned, it was past 2 a.m. in the morning. This strategy of exhausting the suspect is commonly used because as physical and mental fatigue sets in, the suspect is more likely to make mistakes and may confess to escape the uncomfortable interrogation environment.
Mentally. Yeah. Ow. Detective McCollum just wanted to go over some of the points. I know I had more of an opportunity to ask questions than she did, so we wanted to just.
It was part of your character, of who you are, by any means. But I know, and you know, that something happened there today that caused this. Because it didn't happen from a slip and fall in the bathtub. It didn't happen that way, and you know that. And here's the thing.
I would tell you, I have never, ever.
What you pick. But one of the two things happened. She didn't do this to herself, and there was nobody else there.
The detective used a common strategy by posing an alternative question to start unraveling the suspect's narrative. They suggested that an accident might have happened, and if the suspect were to confess to this possibility, then they would dig deeper and challenge if it was really just an accident.
What are we supposed to think? What you're saying doesn't make sense.
If
just saying I don't know what happened.
So when you pulled her out of the tub, you agreed with me that the water came out of the tub. There's not a spot of water on the floor, David. The carpet isn't wet. The carpet isn't wet from where she was pulled out of the bathtub, sopping wet, all the way around to the front of the couch. The carpet's not wet. There's no blood on the carpet. Average person would think if you pull somebody who has been in a tub with long brown hair, who's bleeding in a, what did you call it, a rose-colored water in the tub, and you pull her out, water's going to come splashing out on the floor. So please help us to understand, because if you maintain what you're saying right now, do you understand that it just looks like you just don't care?
Okay. That's not like Scott Peterson, who killed Lacey Peterson, who's got 4 or 5 different girlfriends in 4 different states. Okay? I don't think that's who David is. I think David made a mistake. And I don't think David needs to pay as severely as someone like Scott Peterson. I think David needs to tell the truth. David's going to feel better about that, and then we're going to deal with what that truth is. And we're going to be able to figure it out together. Okay? Okay? That's not like Scott Peterson, who killed Lacey Peterson, who's got 4 or 5 different girlfriends in 4 different states. Okay? I don't think that's who David is. I think David made a mistake. Who didn't really care for this woman, who didn't love her, who married her because maybe she had potential to make really good money, or had some money, or maybe for the life insurance. Who knows? I mean, that's what people are going to think, unless we are able to say the truth. But it's one or the other, Dave. You either made a mistake, you're a cold-blooded killer. Which one are you? Dave, is it a mistake? You don't know that? Common sense would tell you if you pull a woman soaking wet out of a tub at 3 o'clock and call the police within 6 minutes, then everything will be soaking wet when the police arrive within 3 minutes of that. That's common sense.
So how did everything dry up?
That's our question. Because she wasn't pulled out at 3 o'clock. It didn't happen.
There's a science behind evaporation, and that science is not matching.
It's not magic.
3 o'clock.
I can take a shower at 6:30 in the morning, and at 10 o'clock at night, my towel's still wet. The shower even stays wet. That's the sliver of truth. There's blood in the water. There's another sliver of truth.
Mm-hmm.
I know you think you thought of everything, but you didn't.
I don't think I thought of everything. I've told you over and over, I don't know.
You do know. You have to stop saying you don't know, because you do know. You do, David. You do know. You know exactly what happened, because it was only you and her there. There was nobody else there. Because I'm telling you right now, nobody is going to believe that. Nobody.
Look, as it's picked apart by as everything you told us is picked apart by everyone who testified.
And we haven't even hit on everything.
We're holding something back, waiting to hear the truth.
People can be sympathetic when they hear people be honest and remorseful. They can be empathetic to a situation that gets out of hand.
I can't tell you what's going to happen to you. I don't know because you're not telling the truth. I can tell you that she's a lead detective in this. And if you maintain this BS, she has one choice to go with.
The narrative I choose to write, based on the facts that we know.
Right.
Whether it's true or not.
But it's what we have.
You don't want me to surmise what happened, do you? Just based on evidence, testimony? You want me to tell your truth, or do you want to tell your truth? Because if I tell your truth, it's probably going to be first degree, premeditated, and I'll make you probably look like I am. I don't think that's fair, but you're not leaving me a lot of choice. Okay?
And then what happens?
You face the music.
Which is?
You face the music. You face a jury of your peers. You gotta understand, we're in control of the narrative here. You and I and Detective McClellan are in control of the narrative here. We're gonna know the truth when we hear it. David, we've been doing this a really long time. Okay, we're gonna know the truth when we hear it. It's gonna match what we already know. And solve this case. And I'm glad you think that's funny. I'm glad you think that's funny. I'm glad you think that's funny. Okay? Because every time you smirk and smile, okay, that's going to be seen as well.
And what do you think? What happened? What happened between you and her?
The detectives tried to get a confession from Dave, but their efforts didn't work. They kept asking questions repeatedly, but Dave continued to insist that he was innocent. In the end, they had to stop the interrogation, and Dave was allowed to leave because nothing he said could be used against him. The detectives were not happy with the outcome since their main goal was to get a confession. However, this interrogation marked the beginning of the investigation into Dave as the primary suspect. In the following months after the interrogation, the investigators looked into other possible suspects. Shanti's ex-husband, Jim, was interviewed and asked about his whereabouts on April 24, 2018. He had a strong alibi, so he was ruled out as a suspect. The investigators also spoke to Shanti's friends, who revealed that even though Dave bought the house, it was always Shanti who paid for everything, even the small expenses of running the house. Dave didn't contribute financially. After 2 months of investigation, the detectives discovered that Dave was a member of a place called Club Orlando, which is a same-gender bathhouse. A witness claimed to have seen Dave involved in activities with other men at the club. Shanti's friends and family strongly believed that she wouldn't have tolerated this, suggesting that Dave was leading a double life, hiding his actions from Shanti. During the search of their house, they found Shanti's engagement ring, which had been stolen months before, in Dave's possession. This indicated that Dave was the one who stole it, and it raised suspicions about his intentions from the beginning. In addition, they found Shanti's diary, which confirmed her feelings of sadness, loneliness, and fear, expressing her desire to break free from the life she'd built. I don't feel mentally healthy at this time, and a lot of the poor and unhealthy feelings are due to our interactions. I never feel like I do anything right. Unless I'm being perfect, I've ruined your day, your life. Another day of crying. Another day of being depressed and asking myself what I'm doing wrong. The answer is to be nice. In a note dated March 2016, Shanti had written a list of her complaints about Dave. She felt he was lying about being wealthy and never paid for anything. Even when it was his turn to pay for dinner, he'd claim he forgot his wallet. She was also unhappy about the ongoing renovations to their home, which forced them to live in the garage apartment. The letters found by the detectives supported their belief that money and problems with the house renovation might have been reasons for Dave to kill Shanti. Dave was eventually arrested 4 months later in August 2018 and charged with first-degree murder for the death of Shanti Cooper. The trial for Dave Trons was scheduled to begin on February 3, 2020, but was delayed several times due to the COVID pandemic and health issues that David had. Finally, in January 2021, the trial started, and it was the first time Jackson, Shanti's son, saw Dave in person since his arrest. Jackson mentioned that Dave looked terrible and wasn't doing well. During the trial, both the defense and prosecution discussed Dave's mental state. They agreed that he was not mentally fit to proceed with the trial and recommended that he be committed for evaluation. The trial was delayed again and set for September 2023. Currently, Dave is still in prison waiting for his trial. Despite the delays, it's widely believed that Dave is responsible for Shanti Cooper's death, and he can't escape the consequences. The interrogation of Dave Trons revealed a web of lies, deceit, and hidden secrets. As detectives skillfully peeled back the layers of Dave's narration, inconsistencies, and emotional switches, it painted a haunting picture of a potential murderer. It shows how important it is to conduct thorough and insightful interrogations in cases like this. What are your thoughts on this case? Was Dave Trons really responsible in Shanti Cooper's murder? On August 2, 2015, the Franklin County Sheriff's Office received a series of frantic 911 calls, all recounting the same horrifying event.
Hello, Gahanna Police.
Somebody just set a woman on fire behind Speedway on Stigler Road.
I don't just set a woman on fire.
The individual behind this appalling event was identified as Michael Slager, a 41-year-old man, while the woman subjected to this unspeakable tragedy was his 31-year-old girlfriend, Judy Malinowski. However, what happened in the next few years would make an extraordinary tale, as against all odds, Judy became the first person in history to testify in her own homicide.
Hi, my name is Judith Malinowski, and I am ready to testify.
But what were the underlying factors that precipitated this tragic incident? And to what extent did this case permanently reshape the legal landscape?
He ran around me and started pouring gasoline, started up my head and worked his way down. Some got through my throat as he did that. That hurt really bad.
Judy Malinowski came into existence as Judith Ann Hensel on August 26, 1982. Born to parents Bonnie and Thomas Hensel in Columbus, Ohio, Judy held a special place, as she was not only her mother's first child, but also arrived after numerous attempts.
Judy was my firstborn. She made me a mom. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was the happiest time of my life.
As she grew up, she evolved into her mother's closest companion. In addition to being a model daughter, Judy also embraced a role of a caring elder sister to her younger sister Danielle and her younger brother Patrick.
Judy was the nicest sister I ever had in my life. I love her to pieces.
Judy attained her high school education at New Albany High School in Ohio, graduating in 2001. During her time there, she garnered popularity and even earned the title of Miss New Albany, and was also crowned the homecoming queen. Following her high school journey, Judy pursued higher education at Ohio State University. Her charisma extended beyond academics. She was beautiful inside and out, always putting others' needs before her own. Her life was thrown into chaos when she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer at a young age, but she successfully overcame it. As a free-spirited young woman, Judy had won several beauty pageants, but she didn't have a desire for limelight. She only wished to lead a simple life.
She always would say, Mom, I want to have a simple life. I want to be a school teacher. I just want to live in a nice neighborhood with a husband that loves me and 2 kids.
And her wish almost came true. At the young age of 22, Judy tied the knot with a man named Ron Malinowski. While the specifics of her marriage remain somewhat obscure, their family soon expanded. In March 2004, she welcomed her first child, a daughter named Kaylin Malinowski. 3 years later, in September 2007, her joy multiplied with the birth of another daughter, whom she named Madison Malinowski. Judy's affection for her daughters was profound. In her words, they were the color of her heart.
People can just say, like, I love you and all, and, like, not always mean it. But for my mom, like, I always knew that she, like, actually loved me.
Life was sailing smoothly until Judy caught her husband Ron cheating on her, prompting their separation at the end of 2007. Unfortunately, this marked the onset of a series of unexpected challenges. At this time, Judy's cancer had also returned. The doctors had to perform a total hysterectomy on her. Demonstrating remarkable strength, Judy triumphed over the cancer once again. However, her trials were far from over. America in the late 2000s witnessed a surge in the prescription of opioid drugs, which led to several addiction stories. Judy was among those affected. During her recovery, she began to develop a dependence for pain medications.
She had told me, Mom, I'm getting addicted to this pain medicine. And I said to her, Judy, it's fine. I'll never forget it. I said, just take them as the doctor prescribes them. It says 4 a day, take 4 a day. It's fine.
Judy received support from her family, yet the situation was deteriorating. Once her insurance stopped covering the medicines, she turned to street drugs, particularly heroin. The repercussions were severe. Not only did her health decline, but her relationship with her family and daughters also underwent a significant change.
I realized that she was a binge user, and she would go and use and self-medicate whatever she needed.
We knew my sister, when she was in her addiction, couldn't care for the girls the same way. And so I had helped with Maddie, and then my mom had Kaylee full-time.
However, with time, she came to a realization that her impulsive choices were profoundly impacting her daughters. Fueled by this awareness, she took a pivotal step by enrolling in Ohio's Parkside Rehab Center. In a short span, she achieved sobriety, secured an apartment, and sorted out her income. Life was finally turning around for this young mother through these small steps.
I think for the first time throughout her whole addiction, I felt like I had my sister back.
Sometime in 2014, through social media, Judy reestablished contact with Michael Slager, an acquaintance from her ex-husband's circle. Michael, commonly known as Mike to many, initiated contact with Judy through a message on Facebook. He told her that he always had feelings for her, but couldn't express them before as she was married at that time. Their interaction evolved into a romantic relationship in April 2015.
So he began to, I would say, dote her, like just messaging her and just everything I guess a girl wants to read, especially, where Judy was in her life.
Initially, Judy's mother, Bonnie, was not in favor of their relationship and expressed her concern about having Judy's daughters in close proximity to Michael.
He came over to my home and he pulled in my driveway and he wanted to speak to me. He said, just because I have tattoos or I look the way I look, that doesn't mean I'm a bad person. If you're a Christian and you have love, why are you judging me by my tattoos? And I thought, wow, he's probably right. Jesus wouldn't want me to do that. But so I kind of fell in from that moment on, like, okay, back off, Bonnie.
It was almost like he knew what it takes to manipulate her to his advantage. Unfortunately, neither Judy nor her family were aware of Michael Slager's extensive criminal record at that time. His past included charges of theft, battery, stalking, domestic abuse, burglary, assault, and even child endangerment. He was an extremely dangerous individual, and it didn't take long for him to reveal his true colors. Merely a few months into the relationship, Michael started getting possessive and abusive. Judy, in her attempt to manage the situation, found herself slipping back into drug use. Shockingly, Michael was now the one bringing drugs to her, even though he refrained from using them himself. Her family believed that this was Michael's tactic to take control of the situation. As long as Judy needed drugs, she'd keep coming back to him, trapped in a never-ending cycle of dependence. There were instances when Michael had gone as far as choking Judy to the point that she was in fear for her life. Judy confided in her friends and family, revealing her genuine concern that Michael might take her life if she attempted to leave. He even tried to turn Judy's mother against her own daughter.
He honestly started to play me. She's on drugs. I don't think I can wake her up. I don't think I can wake her up. You better call 911. As time went on, there was more and more of this. He would call me and say, she didn't come home. How dare her? So I started thinking, bad Judy.
Michael not only beat Judy, but also threatened her life on a regular basis. The situation escalated to a point where law enforcement had to be involved on multiple occasions. While Michael was often the one making the calls, there were times when Judy herself contacted the authorities. However, despite nearly a dozen calls to their apartment regarding domestic violence, no charges were ever pressed. Judy tried to end the relationship on multiple occasions, mirroring the pattern seen in classic cases of abuse where victims struggle to break free. Despite her efforts, she found herself drawn back to Michael time and time again. Judy's mother had cautioned Michael to keep his distance from her daughter, yet he continued to live in her apartment. Judy even sought assistance from law enforcement, but her history of drug abuse seemed to hinder her credibility in their eyes. Tragically, Michael exploited this vulnerability to his advantage, telling her that the police were on his side. It was yet another manipulation tactic, a means to tighten his control over Judy. For Judy, the only viable path to escape from both drugs and Michael was through rehab. Finally, in August 2015, Judy was accepted into a drug rehabilitation program, and Parkside Rehab informed her about an available bed. Michael volunteered to drive her there. Therefore, on Sunday, August 2, 2015, Michael drove Judy to the rehab center. However, Judy wasn't fully prepared to immediately proceed with her rehabilitation. Judy felt the need to connect with her family, explain the situation, and have a final interaction with her children before her admission to the rehab facility. She also intended to buy cigarettes ahead of her arrival at the rehab center, where smoking was allowed. As a result, they opted to temporarily depart from the center and decided to come back later. On their way back, they made a stop at the Speedway gas station at 376 Agla Road in Gahanna, Ohio. Consequently, she also wanted to take a break from the ongoing argument she'd been having with Michael throughout the journey. She had no idea that her life was on the verge of taking a devastating turn. The surveillance cameras at the two nearby ATMs captured Judy and Michael's truck coming to a stop behind the gas station. The couple appeared to be in a heated argument, which persisted even after they exited the vehicle. Out of frustration, Judy flung her soda at Michael, triggering a frightening reaction. Michael went back to his vehicle and obtained a red gasoline container, walked back to Judy, and poured the gas can over her. As Judy wanted to back away from Michael, she lost her footing on the grass, trying to grasp what just happened. Within moments, Michael leaned down and ignited her with a lighter. The horrendous scene caught on camera showed Judy struggling for her life as she became engulfed in flames. Despite her pleas for help, Michael callously stood there watching her burn. Only a monster could do that. He only proceeded to use a fire extinguisher after observing the onlookers rushing to her aid and injured himself in the process. The Franklin County Sheriff's Office received multiple calls from the gas station, all describing the gut-wrenching incident.
Somebody is on fire? Can you tell me who did this? Like, there's a guy that's out there who's standing out there still. He's in a boiler black truck. He has tattoos all over him. He's still here. What did he do? What, like gasoline? What did he do?
Up to her like they were arguing. She dropped her bags on the ground, and then he pulled up and walked up to her with a lighter or something to light a cigarette, and she I don't know what happened, something was all over her. She just ignited immediately.
The girl was sitting in the grass, and he got out, and he threw something. All of a sudden, she was on fire.
We've already got a call. The fire department's on the way.
The police are there? I think the police are here. Okay.
Both Judy and Michael were transported to the Ohio State University's Wexner Medical Center for treatment, and Judy's family was promptly notified. At that point, they had no idea what happened. They could only assume that an accident had occurred.
Some nurse had took me the wrong way. I went past Michael's room. I went in before anybody could stop me because I was looking for my daughter. I was looking for my baby. And I went in there and I was like, Michael, where is Judy? I'll never forget it. He looked at me and he said, it was an accident. It was an accident.
When Judy's mother, Bonnie, entered Judy's room, nothing could have readied her for the scene that awaited her. 95% of her daughter's body was covered in 3rd and 4th degree burns. Her skin was unrecognizable, altered beyond identification by the severity of the burns. The sight was so overwhelming that Judy's sister Danielle couldn't help but throw up. The tormented mother looked at the medical professionals, seeking a glimmer of hope, but there was none. Judy was expected to succumb within hours. Given the extent of her burns and her age, her chances of survival were essentially non-existent. According to the doctors, her condition carried a staggering 110% mortality rate, a grim reality that typically results in patients surviving no more than a few days. While Judy battled for her life, detectives were determined to unravel the truth behind the incident. At that juncture, they had a fairly clear understanding of the events that had transpired. They had access to the data from the 911 calls made by witnesses, and the police had also secured surveillance footage from the 2 ATMs located across the street behind the gas station. What they didn't know was the reason behind it. But there was one person who held the key, the architect of this unthinkable act, confined to a bed at the same hospital as his victim. The lead detective, Chad Cohagen from the Gahanna Police Department, went into Michael's room to interrogate him.
Okay, talk to you about what happened. Okay.
So what, am I under arrest or something?
Right now, yeah, you are under arrest.
What am I being charged with?
You're going to be charged with felonious assault and aggravated arson.
Before Michael had a chance to deny everything, Detective Cohagen informed him that they had gathered sufficient substantial evidence against him.
Let me just be direct with you too, Mike, okay? Where it happened at, there's an ATM right there. Okay. That ATM records all the time. We have detectives go pull the footage, we review the footage, we've all seen the footage. We know exactly what happened. Okay. So we saw exactly what happened. We saw you pour gasoline over top of her head. She stumbles to the ground. You lean over and light her on fire. We saw what happened. We know what happened.
As it turned out, Michael had a different version of the story to share.
That's not the way it looks, so I'll just wait and talk to my attorney then.
If it's not the way it looks, I'd love to hear what more there is to it.
We're arguing, she threw pop on my face, and then we was going back and forth with it, and when she come in and spit in my face, and I said, oh, well, here, you want to ruin my stuff up, because that's how I took it. I said, here, boom, I'm going to ruin your clothes. It wasn't to start her on fire or nothing, you know what I mean? It was just to ruin her clothes.
Right, yeah. Basically, you've ruined my stuff, I'm going to ruin your stuff.
So, she didn't stumble, she just sat down, she was sitting down. And then she said, well, I was getting ready to leave, and she was like, well, because I was just going to say, fuck it, leave.
Yeah, take off.
And she was like, well, don't leave, can you bring me a cigarette and stuff? And she was getting ready to change clothes because she's got extra clothes. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I didn't think I got, there was that, realized it was going to be that.
Sure.
So I walked over to give her a light. That was it.
And then
when she went up, I couldn't believe it. I just didn't think that it was going to be like that.
Right.
Right from the get-go, the detective knew that Michael's story seemed phony. It defied logic that someone could be so enraged as to pour gasoline on another person, only to exhibit such calmness 30 seconds later to offer to light a cigarette. Nonetheless, they still needed to validate his account. Judy was temporarily brought out of sedation to speak to the detectives. Although risky, this step was deemed necessary despite her precarious state. The detectives were concerned that Judy might pass away without divulging any information, potentially affording Michael an advantage in the eyes of the law. However, there was an additional obstacle to contend with. Would Judy be capable of hearing and responding to anyone's voice in her current condition?
Judy, can you hear me? Are you hurting right now? Okay. All right. Would you mind if someone asked you a couple questions about what happened? Stay calm, Jude. Stay calm, baby.
Hannah, can you hear me? Yeah. Judy, did you spill gas on yourself? No. Did Mike spill gas on you? Did Mike throw gas on you? Yes? Yes? Okay. Thank you.
It was nothing short of a miracle that Judy was not only alive, but also responsive to voices, despite enduring such trauma in her body.
I had never seen trauma like that to a human body that wasn't deceased.
It must have taken every ounce of strength in her to do that. Upon learning of Michael's arrest, Bonnie struggled to come to terms with the news. She considered the possibility that Judy might have been disoriented when speaking to the detectives. The notion that one person could deliberately inflict such harm upon another, especially someone who professed to love that individual, was incomprehensible to her. So she decided to watch the surveillance footage herself.
Right here.
I see her.
You can see here, she ran across to here, walked across to here, and now
she's angry. You can see her hands.
You can tell
flying.
she's very demonstrative.
Yeah, I know,
she's very right.
It's
and
just not my child. She's angry.
Right.
They see her. She's throwing her arms, so she's mad about something there.
At one point, she does pick up the drink, and she does throw the drink on him.
She keeps backing up further from him.
Yeah, she clearly wants nothing to do with him here, and she starts walking away. You can clearly see him dumping a red can over top of her and liquid spilling down.
Oh my gosh.
She's in frame here for a little bit, but then you see her get up, stagger off, and she's never back in frame.
He bent down and literally just lit her on fire.
He did. Yep. Absolutely.
So he thought about it.
Yeah.
Over the ensuing 8 months, Judy remained in a coma. She was placed on life support on 7 separate occasions, and each time she exhibited an extraordinary will to survive. Her journey was a relentless battle between life and death, a struggle that defied expectations. In the midst of this, Michael Slager awaited his fate in jail, counting down the days. If Judy were to pass away, the prosecutors could potentially bring murder charges against him. After 8 months, the detectives received a call they never expected to get. Judy Malinowski had regained consciousness. Following 59 surgeries and months of intensive treatment, her appearance had been drastically altered. She'd lost all of her hair, both ears, and a few fingers. Some wounds on her back and buttocks remained open due to her weakened state preventing surgery while lying on her stomach. Her severely burned skin was decked with ointments and dressings. She experienced excruciating pain in every living moment, yet she remained alive. Medical professionals deemed it a miracle. And with that miracle, Judy was yearning for justice to be served. After months behind bars, Michael Slager was charged with aggravated arson and felonious assault. Michael continued to deny that he intentionally caused Judy harm, so the prosecution was preparing a jury trial. Despite endless suffering, Judy was ready to testify against him.
She wanted to tell her story. I think she wanted somebody to finally listen to her.
We were actually prepared for trial that morning.
However, his defense attorney, Bob Krapens, attempted to make him realize that if Judy were to testify, the outcome would not be favorable for him.
I had to go back to Michael and say, Michael, look, she's going to testify. And this jury is going to hate you. They're absolutely going to hate you.
Even though it was a bluff from the prosecution side, as they were uncertain about whether Judy's health would permit her testimony or not, Michael fell for it. He entered a no-contest plea to the charges, thus avoiding a trial, and Judy was unable to testify. The defense found it crucial to keep Judy's testimony out of the picture for a possible future murder trial.
In your previous plea, entered not guilty plea and pleading a no contest plea in this matter.
Correct, Your Honor.
Judy found no satisfaction in this outcome. She felt as if Michael was once again silencing her voice.
Judy felt like he's doing it again. Look, he is manipulating me and the system again. He's controlling and pulling everybody's strings, Mom. Everybody's right down to the prosecutors.
In December of 2016, Michael Slager was handed an 11-year prison sentence. Judy's family regarded this punishment as unjust, considering it far too lenient for such a horrific act.
Judy has a life sentence, and her children have a life sentence. Mrs. Bose was correct when she said This girl has a life sentence. The pain inflicted by burns, there's no pain like that.
Despite Judge Judy Lynch sharing their sentiments, she was constrained by the fact that this was the maximum possible sentence allowable for the charges under Ohio's laws. The most disheartening aspect was that Michael refused to shoulder any responsibility for his actions and showed no remorse for destroying a person's life in such an awful manner.
I can't help myself. I don't mean to break down. I'm sorry. I'm trying so hard to stay strong, but it's just so hard. It's so hard when he just isn't even remorseful for anything. Oh my gosh.
The situation was far from a victory for the prosecution as well. Prosecutor Warren Edwards recognized the necessity for more severe punishment. And then there was Judy, who not only survived against all odds, but also stood ready to advocate for countless other women who had endured similar ordeals. With her exceptional determination to live, she already turned the seemingly impossible into a reality. Now she was determined to bring about legal change and was willing to do whatever she could to achieve that goal. With her family by her side, Judy displayed incredible courage throughout a 2-year battle. She not only fought for her own survival, but also to rectify the gaps in the justice system. And her efforts paid off. As early as the beginning of 2017, the Ohio legislature was in the process of finalizing the initial draft of Ohio's House Bill 63, also known as Judy's Law. The proposed law would elevate the maximum sentence for intentionally disfiguring someone to up to 20 years. Unfortunately, this law wouldn't have any impact on her own case, yet Judy remained steadfast in her determination to make a difference in the lives of others. From her hospital bed, Judy conveyed a message through a videotape articulating the reasons why the law should be enacted.
House Bill 63 should be passed because it destroyed my life, my family's life, the kids' life, everyone around us' life. And the laws of justice are just not there.
While the video played out before the lawmakers at the Ohio State House, Judy's 13-year-old daughter, Kaylin, bravely spoke on behalf of her mother.
While we stand here today, my mom lays in a hospital bed where she has been for 609 days. She has been in a lot of pain, and every day is another fight to stay alive. Mike committed a horrible crime and only received an 11-year sentence. Please pass my mom's law, because together we can prevent this from happening to other families.
After a unanimous vote of 30-0 in the House, Judy's Law moved on to the Senate. While this was a positive stride, prosecutors faced another dilemma. Judy's health was declining, and if she were to pass away, Michael could potentially face a murder charge. However, there was the concern that only Michael's account would serve as evidence, with the court missing the chance to hear Judy's side of the story. That's when they approached Judy about testifying in her own potential homicide case, and Judy was more than willing to do so. She understood that, despite her remarkable willpower, she might not survive her injuries.
And that's when they approached Judy about testifying to her own homicide. It was a long shot because it had never been done. Nobody had ever testified to their own homicide in the United States.
But history was about to change.
We were denied her testimony at the trial when at the last minute there was a no contest plea and we didn't have her testimony.
With the assistance from the Franklin County District Attorney Ron O'Brien, Judy Malinowski won a motion and was granted permission to provide a video deposition that would be admissible as evidence in Michael's future murder trial. However, another significant obstacle lay ahead. In order to proceed, Judy had to be weaned off her pain medications to be deemed legally competent. Her history of drug abuse made the situation even more challenging. But Judy was not going to retreat after coming this far. She endured weeks of tremendous agony as she underwent the process of gradually reducing her high doses of pain medications. Her pain was strong, but her dedication was stronger.
It hurts so bad. I don't want to do it. I have to.
I know.
Michael Slager requested the judge's permission to be present in the room while she recorded her deposition. The prosecution interpreted this as an intimidation tactic. Ultimately, the judge denied his request. No one except the nurses were permitted in the hospital room during the testimony, not even Judy's mom. The deposition commenced with Magistrate Elizabeth Waters administering the oath to Judy Malinowski.
This is Magistrate Elizabeth Waters. I'm going to swear you in. Could you please raise your right hand to the extent that you possibly can? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this deposition will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to God or under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you.
The testimony continued with Prosecutor Warren Edwards, who commenced by inquiring about Judy's full name and age. He then guided her back to the day of the attack, prompting Judy to recount the sequence of events that fateful day.
Hi, Judy.
Hi.
Okay, I'm going to start by asking you your name. Full name.
Judith Ann Malinowski.
I want to show you what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit DD1. Okay, that's the man you started dating in April 2015.
Yes.
Okay. I want to talk to you about Sunday, August 2nd, 2015. Do you recall that day?
August 2nd, 2015, yes, I do.
Okay. And on that day, were you with Mr. Slager?
Yes.
And where were you with him?
Well, we had went a couple places, but he had took me to UA after leaving the rehab center. And
let's talk about that for a minute. After leaving the rehab center, we're talking about Parkside Drug Rehab?
Yes.
Okay. It was the plan to check you in there, correct?
Yes.
But you weren't ready to go. Is that fair to say?
Sure.
Did you have some things you wanted to do before you went?
Yes.
Did those things include talking to your children that we saw earlier?
Yes.
And talking to your mother?
Yes.
And how about getting some cigarettes?
Yes.
While recounting the events, Judy explained that they'd halted at the gas station to purchase cigarettes. Mr. Edwards proceeded to delve into more intricate details of the precise events that transpired between them.
What happened as you stood behind that speedway?
Mike came in a matter of no time at all around in his truck. He saw me and immediately slammed the truck in the park, got out, demanded that I got into the truck with him, called me all sorts of names. We argued for a good 5 to 10 minutes, and then I threw my pop on him.
You threw a pop on him?
Yes.
What was his reaction to this?
He was extremely upset.
And what did he do?
He ran around to the other side of his truck, and he got his, the gasoline that he had kept in the back of his truck. It was really big and had a lot of gas. He ran around to me and started pouring gasoline, started up my head and worked his way down. Some got through my throat as he did that. That burnt really bad.
The gasoline in your throat burnt really bad?
Yes.
When he poured the gasoline on you, were you standing?
No.
Go ahead and tell us how you were when he poured the gasoline on you.
I had fell down and I was leaning on my right side, holding myself with my right arm and hand.
Okay. So did you fall down as a result of that burning sensation from the gasoline?
No.
Okay. What caused you to fall down?
I fell down completely the rest of the way. But I originally had fell down because he had pushed me. I tripped when I was running from him.
Next, Edwards questioned her regarding Michael's demeanor while he was pouring gasoline on her. Judy's response was truly heart-wrenching.
What's his demeanor as he's pouring the gasoline on you?
Evil, just completely evil. He's not responding to any of my cries for help. He won't tell me why. He just is like, you want to throw something on somebody, you want to throw a cop on me, see what I'll do to you, bitch, and how do you like this, and just all sorts of vulgar names.
Okay. So Judy, was this a joking demeanor? You poured something on me, I'm going to pour something on you, ha ha, isn't this funny?
No, it was an evil demeanor.
Okay.
Judy further described the dreadful moments when Michael executed the irrevocable act of setting her ablaze.
What happens next?
He backed away from me for about 30 seconds, and I kept telling him, so please help me and stop, and I'll get the truck, I'll go with you. You know, why would you do this? And I looked at him, and he pulled a lighter out of his pocket, and he started walking towards me, and I just remember crying and begging for help, and he let me on fire, and the look in his eyes went black, literally, after I was set on fire, and he backed away. His eyes just turned black as I screamed for his help. Okay. He did nothing.
Edwards aimed to counter Michael's initial claim that the incident was caused by lighting a cigarette. Therefore, he directly questioned Judy about whether such an occurrence had actually taken place.
So this entire time you're asking for help, but did you make up with him in any way during these 30 seconds between him pouring gasoline on you and pulling out the lighter and setting you on fire?
No.
And did you at any time produce a cigarette and ask for a light?
No.
Okay. As a matter of fact, did you have any cigarettes on you?
No.
Okay.
After Warren Edwards concluded his questioning, it was time for the defense attorney, Bob Krapens, to begin his round of cross-examination.
Ms. Malinowski, can you see me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. My name is Bob Krapens. I believe we've never met or talked before, correct?
Yes.
I've organized some questions, and I hope to keep it to the point pretty quick. But if I skip around a little bit, I apologize. I don't mean to. If you have any questions or you're not sure what I'm asking you, okay, please ask me to repeat it or rephrase it. Fair enough?
Yes.
All right.
As is often the case with defense attorneys, Krapens sought to establish that the victim's statements might not be entirely reliable. After briefly talking about Judy's relationship with Michael, he delved deeper into Judy's history of drug abuse and attempted to suggest that, given the extent of trauma Judy experienced in addition to her prior struggles with drugs, she might not remember many details accurately.
You and Michael and this little clique, you were snorting Percocets and Oxycontins or oxycodones, correct?
Correct.
You having a bad reaction to some drugs that you had taken?
No, it was a result of like calling my mom, telling her that I wouldn't open the door for him, and he was afraid I was going to commit suicide. And I wasn't opening the door for him because we were fighting horrible. The minute I went on a first date with Michael, he never left my house after that or my side.
Although the tone of the questioning grew harsher, Judy remained firm in her testimony.
Did you use heroin after March of 2015?
Yeah, thanks to Mike. He's the one that got it for me the first time.
Did you start stealing money from Mike?
No.
Mike gave you money?
Mike bought it for me every day. He would bring home a gram of heroin.
My question is, you stole money from Mike, correct?
Objection. No, I didn't.
Did you steal property or money from your mother?
I was asked, yes.
Did you involve yourself in other illegal activities in order to get money other than panhandling?
Deep into the cross-examination, Krapens adopted a questionable strategy by implying that Judy displayed aggressive tendencies while under the influence of drugs. This tactic aimed to insinuate that Judy could have somehow provoked Michael, suggesting that the crime might have been accidental rather than intentional.
This is a time when you were still actively using drugs. Is that fair to say? And when you use drugs, you do acts or you commit acts that are not in your nature normally. Is that fair?
Yes.
And you become loud and violent at times, yes?
I don't become violent. I've never had a violent nature.
And Michael called the police in May, I think May 29th of 2015 because of your behavior.
Right, and so did I. I called the police and told them that Michael was going to kill me and I needed help.
The discussion circled back to Judy's memory, particularly her inability to recall certain details of that day. Crappen seized on this, suggesting that her memory had been compromised.
I don't remember.
You remember getting dressed that morning?
No, I don't.
Don't remember where you went to do drugs, but you knew it was a bathroom of some kind, correct?
I've been through so much, sir, unfortunately. I don't remember a lot of things, but I wish I
It'd be fair to say that the trauma you've suffered has affected your memory?
Yes.
Say that it has affected your ability to recall events accurately.
I regret that.
Would you agree that because of the trauma that you have suffered, your ability to recall events accurately has been compromised?
I can recall the events, but the many details of them is what's hard for me to recall. You have to understand, on August 2nd, I was set on fire, thrown on the ground, and burnt 95% of my body.
I understand. What I'm trying to get to
Really
is...
hard for me to try to keep track of everything that happened in this horrible relationship.
The most infuriating question, however, was yet to come. During the end of the video deposition, Crappens asked Judy why she didn't run away during those 30 seconds while she still had a chance.
When he walked away for the 30 seconds that you testified about, you didn't walk anywhere, you just sat in one spot. Is that your recollection?
Yes, I was trying to gather up my stuff, and I had an issue with my shoes. I was trying to change.
You said about 30 seconds passed and then he came back. Was that true?
Yeah.
And at that point, did you try to run anywhere?
After he came back.
As he was approaching?
No, I wanted to get the gasoline off me. I said I would get in the truck. I told him, why would you do this? And
No, just one other.
Yes, go right ahead.
is he done?
The testimony stretched on for 3 long hours, a duration that might have seemed overwhelming considering her condition. Despite the formidable challenges before her, Judy didn't back away, not even for a moment. She felt relieved when the deposition came to an end, not out of fear, but with the satisfaction of finally being able to tell her story. But sadly, it took a toll on her health. According to her mother, Bonnie Bowes, medically, it set her back. A person's resilience can only stretch so far. While Judy's spirit remained unbroken, her body was gradually giving in. After nearly 2 years of constant battle of life and death, Judy made a difficult decision to sign herself up for hospice care, expressing that she was ready to find solace in rest. She was tired of fighting in pain. In June 2017, Judy was transferred to a medical facility where she was no longer getting treatment.
I said, okay, Judy, I'll hold your hand until Jesus takes the other. And I stood up and only for a second, and I turned, I let go of Judy's hand and I turned, and Judy was breathing and okay, and I turned. And I picked up her hand, and I looked, and Beth looked, and I mean, I'm talking seconds, just. she was gone.
On June 27, 2017, her 696 days of battle came to an end. At only 33, Judy Malinowski passed away with her mother by her side, ultimately succumbing to her injuries. She was laid to rest at the Law Enforcement Memorial Gardens in Columbus, Ohio. After Judy's passing, Michael Slager, who was still serving his sentence for the attack, faced additional charges of first-degree murder. Despite being aware of the trouble he was in, Michael remained persistent in his claims of innocence and insisted on pleading not guilty. To Judy's family, it was an old trick of Michael to not shoulder any responsibility for his crimes. On the other hand, the state made their intentions clear. They were seeking the death penalty. The defense contested to have Judy's deposition excluded from the evidence, arguing that its admission violated Michael's right to confront his accuser.
Defense attorneys will fight like heck to keep that testimony of the victim excluded from any jury trial.
However, the judge, Guy Reese, disagreed.
A criminal defendant's right to confrontation is of paramount importance. But the defendant in this case did have an opportunity to confront the accuser, to subject her to cross-examination. 2/3 of the deposition consists of cross-examination.
The deposition was ultimately ruled admissible as evidence. Michael's defense attorney was well aware that if this case proceeded to trial, there existed a significant likelihood that the jury might deliver a verdict of capital punishment. Michael didn't stand a chance. The defense team initially sought a plea deal that would allow him to enter a plea of no contest, a stance that would not require admitting guilt. However, the prosecution rejected this proposition, asserting that this time any arrangement would only be entertained if Michael took accountability for his heinous act. When prosecutor Ron O'Brien approached the family seeking their consent, they readily granted their approval under the same condition. While awaiting trial, Ohio Governor John Kasich signed Judy's law into effect. Judy's family was present during the signing ceremony, and Kasich even allowed Judy's daughters, 13-year-old Kaylin and 10-year-old Madison, to add a dot each to his signature. The passage of the bill held a significant meaning for them, symbolizing that their mummy did not suffer in vain. Meanwhile, Michael agreed to plead guilty to first-degree murder, finally acknowledging the crime.
You will spend the rest of your natural life incarcerated.
Life in prison with no chance of parole is the sentence for the man convicted in the murder of Judy Malinowski.
On July 5, 2018, Michael Slager embraced the plea agreement and was subsequently sentenced to life imprisonment without parole within the Ohio Department of Corrections. During the sentencing hearing, a portion of Judy's testimony was played in court, wherein she expressed her desire for him to receive a life sentence.
Judy, I would just like you to state here, if you were to die from your injuries and Mr. Slager were to be convicted of having done that, I want you to tell a future judge what you want to see happen to Mr. Slager.
I would like to see him charged with murder and do a life sentence. I think that he deserves that.
Okay, thank you, Judy.
Remarkably, Judy displayed the mercy to Michael that he could not show her. Despite Michael offering a brief apology to Judy's family after the sentencing, it remained uncertain whether his remorse was genuine or not. In honor of Judy, her family established Judy's Foundation, which provides support to victims and their families who have experienced domestic violence, drug addiction, and human trafficking. The foundation is actively involved in advocating for the expansion of the Judy's Law to a federal level, aiming to create broader impact and awareness. This story is tragic on so many levels, but it also showcases the incredible fight of a survivor who simply refused to give up. This is a saga of resilience, willpower, and justice. What's your take on this case? Do you feel inspired by Judy's journey? Or do Michael's unspeakable acts make your blood boil?